Hello everyone, Xeno What If here to bring in part 23 of What If Sonic and his friends were in Remnant. Link down description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 48, Showdown at Spiral Hill. The concert hall where Weiss would perform was what one could expect for such a high society. It was a massive hall with a large stage that had the symbol of the Atlas Kingdom on the floor with a dark blue curtain drawn down. There were at least 100 rows of seats on the floor in front of the stage, along with rows of balconies along the walls that surrounded the stage in a manner similar to an amphitheater. The orchestra band was being assembled just below the stage as multiple rich and high-class individuals began to pack all the seats. That included the patriarch of the Schnee family and his only son, who sat next to each other with a pair of bodyguards standing behind them. Jacques looked around to see that every single seat in the hall had been filled, and all of them were of Atlas, elite class. And he could see the cameras close to the stage too, indicating that all of Atlas, heck probably the entirety of Remnant was about to see this concert. He pulled out his scroll and pulled up a file that contained a digital copy of the lyrics that Weiss had written for the song she would perform and skimmed it over it one more time. It had all these messages about unity and all that nonsense, but it seemed to also put Atlas at the focus of it as the song described a white knight that would lead them all, no doubt a reference to the Atlasian Knights. So, this would give Ironwood and the military some credit as well, but this was his daughter performing, so most of the praise is going to come his way once this was all done. He looked to his side to see his son, who didn't seem as excited. Put on a smile, Whitley. The cameras are watching. From all the way up here. Whitley questioned. Don't you think they'd be focused on the stage, where the actual performance is taking place? Sure, but only when it starts. Until then, they're making sure to capture everyone in attendance, including us, the hosts of this charity event. Jacques said, but Whitley still didn't seem as excited. Are you still upset over this morning? Whitley sighed before he answered. We have the money, we can make it happen, and it improves our family name. So will this. Jacques gestured to the stage. But Whitley tried to speak, only for his father to interrupt him. If we validate those animals and allow them higher positions into our company, we are essentially giving handouts to the people who would want our family dead. Jacques explained. It's not about money, son. It's about proving that we are the ones at the top, and that animals must stay where they belong. It's all part of the natural order. If we break that, all of society falls into chaos and we could lose everything. We'll talk more tomorrow. For now, just enjoy the concert. And oh, look who's here. Jacques gestured for Whitley to look to his side, towards other balconies where the Marigold family appeared, along with Fort Lee and his daughter, and Amancio Glass. It seems Henry and his family were able to make it. Perhaps you two could talk more during the after party. Jacques suggested. You haven't spoken with him since your sister came back, right? Sure. Whitley said as he looked to Henry Marigold, the current heir to the Marigold family. He didn't exactly like Henry, but he didn't hate him either. Whitley would probably say that in the time he's known him, they were on neutral terms with each other. And the young man looked bored out of his mind, like he didn't want to be here. Looking at Henry made Whitley think of May, however, and he silently wondered how she might be doing. Out of the corner of his eye though, Whitley spotted a hand waving in his direction. It was from Iona, who looked to Whitley with a smile as she continued to wave. He smiled somewhat as he waved back, even when Fort Lee lightly nudged his daughter to settle down, which she did. The concert was about to begin, and it was currently being broadcasted across the Atlas network, with live screen footage appearing on large holographic screens across various buildings in the hovering kingdoms, with even people in their homes watching from their own televisions and monitors from the comfort of their homes. This included those in the Atlas military as Tails, Blaze, Penny, Pietro, and Seal all watched from a monitor on Pietro's laboratory. The Ace Ops sat in their own personal break room as they watched the event play out on their scrolls as well. As did General Ironwood in his personal office with Winter standing by his side. The people of Mantle were watching as well from all the televisions and monitors of their own homes, those being sold in stores, and even on their scrolls, some even watching in the crater via their own devices. Even the Faunus who worked in the Schnee Dust Company's mines, and even those unemployed were watching. Among those watching were Silver and the Happy Huntresses as they were in the teammates' personal headquarters in Mantle. Weiss herself took a deep breath as she stood in her long white gown just behind the curtains as she could hear the opening announcement from the other side. A sponsor of her family's company speaker greeting all the other rich guests and making some long-winded speech about the attack on Beacon and Atlas, Solidarity, to which Weiss rolled her eyes as she was half tempted to light the man's pants on fire just to get the concert going. She could certainly see RWBY, Young, or even Sonic doing something like that. The mental image of it made her giggle somewhat. And now without further delay, we present, Weiss SCHNEE. The curtains were drawn open as all the spotlights shined on Weiss and she was greeted with mass applause from the audience. Glancing to her side, she spotted her father with a condescending look on his face and her brother looking concerned and miserable. She also spotted Iona practically bouncing from her spot as well, which did make her smile somewhat. Sonic, RWBY, I know I'm probably asking for a lot right now, but I hope you're watching. Her smile turned into the type of grin that they both would share. I'm about to put on quite the show. It was dark and gloomy in Mistral, dark clouds hung over the village of Spiral Hill and yet it did not appear to be raining. All seemed quiet at first, until a flash of light appeared in the middle of the town square. The group consisting of Sonic, RWBY, Young, Knuckles, Amy and Rosa had appeared via Chaos Control, and most of them immediately had their weapons drawn with Sonic quickly putting away the blue Chaos Emerald as he looked ready for a fight. However, it took only a few seconds for everyone to realize, there was no fight going on right now. Wait, what? Sonic blinked. Where are the Grimm? Where is anybody? Young questioned as they looked around the street they were at, and there wasn't a single soul present. It looked as if the town was completely deserted. But, Tangle said her village was under attack. RWBY recalled as she held Caliburn tightly, an unsettling nervousness filled her being. The last time they were in Spiral Hill, it was pleasant and the people seemed to be taking care of themselves despite the unusual circumstances they were in. Maybe everyone evacuated, Rosa suggested. Nobody could have evacuated that quickly. And there'd still be Grimm here. Knuckles said seriously. Something's not right. Let's have a look around. Amy suggested. RWBY and Rosa are with me, Young you go with Knuckles, Sonic you try looking around the perimeter and see if there are any Grimm incoming. Got it. Sonic nodded as he sped off, running and jumping from the edge of the town and fell down the hill to land and run along the perimeter while everyone split off into their respective groups to begin searching. Hello, Tangle, Neptune, Young called out as she and Knuckles sped walk across the streets, their respective weapons at the ready should a fight break out. Who's there? Somebody, help. The pair heard a familiar voice coming from around the corner to find what appeared to be Jewel tied up and hanging from a street lamp. Jewel. Young was the first to run to her and pull her down from the rope with Knuckles looking around, checking for any possible ambush. Oh, thank goodness, you're here. Jewel cried, holding onto Young once she was untied. Those horrid monsters appeared out of nowhere. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. Young tried to console. We got here as soon as we could. What happened here? Where is Tangle? Or Team SSSN? Knuckles questioned. They tried to lure the Grimm away the moment they appeared, Jewel said in between breaths. I stayed behind, to help get everyone to shelter. But the second Tangle and those students were gone, a pair of ruffians appeared and took over the town. Ruffians? Young questioned. Before either of them could ask her any further questions, Yang's scroll rang. She took it out and found Amy's contact and quickly answered. Amy, we found Jewel. That's funny, 'cause we're just outside her museum and we found something you need to see. Amy responded. Sonic had sped throughout the immediate area of the forest surrounding Spiral Hill before making his way back towards the village. No sign of Grimm anywhere. Doesn't look like anybody fled either. Tangle said they were being overwhelmed when she called. He stopped in his tracks as his instincts already told him the answer for this. When the pieces of the puzzle didn't fit together, it usually means one thing. It's a trap. But before the blue hedgehog could speed back to the village and warn his friends, something fast and hard struck him, sending him crashing through several trees before he found himself being pinned to the ground with something cold and metallic around his throat, forcing him to look up at the one who attacked him. Hey, a metal, been a minute, huh? Sonic winced as he found himself looking, once more for the millionth time, into the murderous red gaze of Metal Sonic. Young and Knuckles brought Jewel to the town square in front of the Mineral Museum, where Amy, RWBY, and Rosa were all waiting and immediately spotted what Amy had called about. It was a Mistralian airship, just like the one they arrived in when they first entered the kingdom. A Mistral airship? Yang wondered. Where did this? That's not even the creepiest part, Amy said as she looked to RWBY, who was shaking somewhat, which her elder sister noticed. There's blood inside, RWBY muttered. What? Knuckles questioned seriously with Yang looking freaked out by that. It looked like there was a struggle inside, RWBY explained. But, we didn't see any. There's nobody inside it now. Amy finished for her. Either everyone walked away. Or the bodies were dragged off. Knuckles finished before looking towards Jewel. I don't know, the Beagle shook her head. That ship wasn't here when those hooligans attacked. Hooligans? RWBY questioned. Apparently, Tangle and Team SSSN lured the Grimm away from the village, but somebody else tried to take over as soon as they left. Yang summed up. Who? RWBY asked, looking to Jewel. Did you get a good look at them? Maybe hear their names? Oh, we'll tell you. A certain voice came from a nearby alleyway, as two certain individuals stepped out. The sight of them caused RWBY and Amy to look in surprise and confusion, with Rosa hiding behind RWBY's back in fright. Wait, what? Amy blinked. Prepare to get wrecked, Ruff began. Prepare to get pummeled, Tumble continued. It's payback time, for Ruff and Tumble. Both skunk brothers declared as they brandished their newfound weapons. Despite both trying to sound cool, Yang looked more confused than anything else. Did they just try to rhyme, pummel, with, tumble? It's a thing they do, Amy said as she pinched the bridge between her eyes. These are the two clowns we tangled with at the Mystic Ruins. But you said they were arrested. Knuckles said seriously. They were, RWBY recalled. How'd you two escape? Don't act like we're nothing. Ruff pointed to her. You only won cause you mobbed us with wisps. Yeah, and I'm gonna tie those legs of yours together like pretzel. Tumble said to RWBY specifically. Try it, big guy. Yang was immediately by RWBY's side while Rosa continued to hide behind her. Were these the ones that attacked you? Knuckles asked, looking to Jewel. Yes, but they weren't alone. She warned. There were 4 others with them. 4 others? Amy questioned, prompting Knuckles' eyes to rapidly look in every possible direction for any sign of an ambush. And he did spot something quickly bouncing across the rooftops before appearing at the rooftop of the Mineral Museum, which leapt straight for RWBY while she and Yang seemed focused on Ruff and Tumble. Rosa did notice, however. RWBY, look out. The girl gasped as Tyrion went straight for her with his arm blades, but Knuckles quickly appeared in front of her, crossing his dual axes to catch his blades. Only for a scorpion's tail to shoot from over his back and head, which went straight for Knuckles' eye. But he swerved his head away just in time for the stinger to barely graze his face. That's when Amy and Yang both came in, throwing their hammer and gauntlet respectively at the scorpion Faunus, but he leapt away to avoid their strikes, flipping in midair before landing on his feet. Well, that was interesting. Almost thought I had you there. Tyrion said with a chuckle. You're quick, but I know a few people who are quicker. Knuckles replied seriously. Who are you supposed to be? Who I am doesn't matter. What does matter is her. Tyrion pointed to RWBY, much to the girl's shock and everyone else's concern. Hey, freak show. Back off. Ruff warned. We got dibs on that brat. Yeah, now step off or I'll rip off your tail and make it mine. Tumble warned as well. How's it fair that you get a tail but I lost mine? Not the time, bro. Ruff nudged his brother. Oh, you can toy with her if you wish, but I'm afraid that we still need her. Tyrion replied. You want RWBY, huh? Amy seemed to figure it out as she glared at Tyrion. Let me guess, you work for Salem. Tyrion cackled before looking towards the pink hedgehog with a glare. I don't appreciate you addressing our goddess in such a casual manner. Oh great. A fanatic. Wonderful. Amy's eyelids lowered in annoyance. You want my sister, you gotta go through me first. Yang said with her eyes already glowing red. Hold it. Knuckles stopped her from attacking. Where are your friends? He looked to Tyrion. There are 3 more of you in this village, right? He called out loudly. Come on out. Show yourselves, cowards. Well, you all heard him. Tyrion called to his comrades. No need to hold back. Not against these mighty foes. A loud and annoying sigh escaped from Vermilion as the boar-masked individual stepped out from in between two buildings on the east side of the town's square. "So much for ambushing them," he said as he drew a flail-like weapon. "Seems they already figured it out anyway." Hazel stepped out from the opposite side of the square. "No point in hiding then." And finally, appearing from the rooftop of the Mineral Museum, was Earl Shen, wielding his double-edged lance. "I would much prefer an open battle anyways." Immediately, the group was on guard as they seemed surrounded from all sides. Ruby looked around at her foes, trying to see what they could do just from first glance. There was rough and tumble, wielding huntsman weapons from the looks of it, a scorpion faunus with arm blades who looked more than a little crazy, a rather big and muscular man who seemed unarmed, a man wearing a boar mask with a flail, and the man on the rooftop. "Wait, I know you." She recognized him. "You're Earl Shen. You're one of Mistral's most famous huntsmen." "You know him?" Amy asked. "I've seen all kinds of videos of him fighting Grim." Ruby exclaimed. "Everyone calls him the White Reaper with all the Grim that he's killed." Yang got a good look at him too before her own eyes widened. "You're right, that is him." Her face turned into a scowl. "What the hell? You're with these guys?" "For the time being," Earl Shen answered. "But you're a huntsman," Ruby exclaimed in shock. "You're supposed to be a good guy." This ended up bringing back memories of her argument with Sienna Khan about how not all huntsmen are noble, with some even being greedy and corrupt. That's when Tyrion let loose another maddening laugh. "Oh, little Rose, to be young and naive. The world is far more complicated than one of those cute little comics you've read." He dangled his tail menacingly over his face. "Maybe it's time to give you a harsh lesson in reality. And don't expect your blue friend to come and save you, either." Vermilion added. "His little robot clone is keeping him busy right now." Ruby's face paled at the mention of that particular robot. The memory of Metal Sonic wielding Crescent Rose to tear Penny to pieces was still fresh in her memory. "Metal Sonic," Knuckles growled. "Yeah, on his own, Sonic would have trouble against him. Seems like this attack was planned. Young, take your sister and Jewel, and try to find where everyone is locked up. We'll handle these guys." "Hold on, we can help you." Yang protested. "Please, everyone is in danger." Jewel pleaded. "I think that awful scorpion even poisoned some of them." She pointed to Tyrion. "Then we got no time to waste." Amy said. "Knuckles is right, you two. Go with Jewel. Help the villagers. And take Rosa. We'll clear you a path." Yang growled but knew they were right. If anybody in this village was poisoned, they needed to get them help fast. "All right, Ruby." The silver-eyed girl shook her head as she tried to focus on the task at hand. "Lead the way when it's clear," she said to Jewel, who nodded her head shakily and rapidly. "Rosa. I'm ready when you are." The wisp chimed. With a roar, Knuckles sliced his dual axes, cutting out two large pieces of the ground. And with his own strength behind the swings, the large pieces of debris were thrown up into the air, which Amy swung it to send the debris flying to Hazel and Vermilion. Hazel used his strength to catch one piece of debris, while Vermilion swung his flail to shatter the debris flown at him. Tyrion leapt forward with his arm blades and tail, but was quickly met in the middle by Amy, who swung her Pico at him, but Tyrion caught it with his tail as he was on all his fours like a scorpion. He sliced his blades upwards, but Amy was able to leap back and was soon forced backwards by a gold laser beam shot at her from above, striking the ground with an explosion. Looking up to the source of it, Amy saw Earl Shen with his third eye tattoo on his forehead glowing. Amy was then forced to contend again with Tyrion as he sliced his arm blades at her, but she proved nimble enough to avoid most of it, along with his tail thrusts, all while the scorpion faunus chuckled. "Come on." Jewel grabbed Ruby by her wrist and led her away from the town square with Yang and Rosa right beside her. Vermilion saw them and extended the chain on his flail so that when he flung it, it extended a full 30 feet and appeared to head in the direction of Ruby's head, but Knuckles had thrown one of his axes to knock the flail off course right before he rushed to grab his downed weapon and went straight for the boar-masked wearing man, raising both axes upward to slice down at him, which Vermilion blocked with the handle of his weapon. The force of the collision caused the ground to cave in slightly before Vermilion threw a punch to Knuckles' head to knock him to the ground. He pulled back the chain of his flail so that the spiked ball connected to the pole-like mace as he tried to bring it down onto Knuckles, but the red echidna blocked it by crossing his dual axes and pushed himself upward to overpower Vermilion and slam his head into his mask for a headbutt, knocking him back. A glow was seen out of the corner of Knuckles' eye as he looked to see a fireball coming towards him, which he stopped by slicing at it with his right axe blade, cutting the fireball in half as both halves exploded behind him. But that also left him open for Hazel, whose own right arm glowed orange slightly, to appear with an uppercut into Knuckles' jaw and send him crashing into a building. Hazel looked to see Vermilion get back up as he rubbed his head slightly, despite holding the mask. Not a lot of people who can overpower you, much less one-on-one. That one is strong, for a little guy. Vermilion observed as they saw Knuckles step out from the hole in the building, not the least bit harmed. Then we can't afford to hold back, either. Hazel said as he took out a lightning dust crystal and thrusted it into his left arm. Knuckles gasped slightly as he saw the veins in Hazel's arms glow both orange and yellow, with Hazel's eyes also glowing brightly. A fireball appeared in his right hand and his left hand surged with electricity. Meanwhile, Jewel continued to lead Ruby, Yang, and Rosa down the streets of her home village. It's not that far from here. I think they're all locked in the community center. Jewel said. Good. Once they're rescued, we can. A wall of fire cut off Ruby's sentence as well as their path, all courtesy of the dust thrower weapon that Ruff wielded as he appeared on the rooftop of the building on their left. Hey, don't you go running off on us. Ruff called down. Tumble then appeared from the alleyway down below, throwing his mace towards them, which Yang blocked by quickly stepping in front and crossing her arms to take the blow. Though she did get pushed back somewhat, she wasn't knocked over as Ruby was quickly by her side. We still got a score to settle with you. Tumble stated as Ruff dropped by his brother's side. You two again, Ruby groaned. Rosa, find a safe place to hide with Jewel. Yang and I can handle these guys. Are you sure? Rosa asked. Yeah, I had worse hits than that. Yang waved her arms off. Who asked you to butt in, Blondie? Ruff pointed to Yang. Why are you even here? Ruby smirked slightly. Because when the day needs saving, she began, looking to her sister. Nothing can stop this gang. Yang continued with a smirk of her own, following her sister's lead as they both stood together. You're about to get busted by Ruby and Yang. They both declared with confidence. That's our thing. Stop stealing our thing. Ruff shouted as he shot lightning out of his dust thrower, which both girls dodged while Tumble went for Yang with a roar, throwing out his mace, which the girl caught with her hands. All the while Rosa and Jewel hid around the corner. And though the Wisp looked with worry, she also had confidence that Ruby and Yang could handle this. However, the Wisp failed to notice a slight smirk appear on Jewel's face as her eyes turned color. What was once a pair of pink eyes with white sclera, were now white eyes with black sclera. Meanwhile, all the villagers of Spiral Hill were all rounded up and held in the basement within the community center. Every single one of them looked more than a little frightened as they clung to each other in fear. Among these captive individuals were Tangle, and Team SSNN, all 5 of them were looking rather beaten up, but that didn't seem the worst of their condition. They were all sweating up a storm and appeared to be suffering from violent fevers. A few of the medics who lived in Spiral Hill were trying to tend to them, with Jewel, the real one, helping to look after Tangle. With worry and concern, Jewel had put her hand on Tangle's forehead. Her fever is only rising, whatever that vile scorpion did to her, its poison is unlike any I've seen before. Tyrion Kalos. Oscar spoke up as he and his aunt were also held in the community center. His venom isn't like that from an ordinary scorpion. It's near fatal and can be corrosive if he chooses it to be. Chooses. Jewel exclaimed. He can choose how deadly his venom is. For the most part, it depends on how much he uses. Oscar said as he was about to walk over, but Emilia put his hand on her shoulder to try and shook her head, but he shrugged her off and went regardless, much to her concern. He joined Jewel and kneeled down to Tangle and the team of huntsmen and got a good look at them. It doesn't look like they were given enough venom to kill them right away, but they will need to go to a hospital soon. How do you know this? Do you know that horrible man? Jewel questioned. No. But, I know a friend who does. Oscar answered. Please tell me that you know about some kind of healing magic that can help. I'm afraid not. Ozpin answered, even in my first life when I had my full power, healing abilities were not exactly common among warriors. What about Aura? Oscar asked internally. Can't you just awaken hers? It can help people to heal faster, right? I cannot. She is from Sonic's world and I have tried to awaken his aura, to no avail. I doubt it will work for her. Ozpin replied. What about them? Oscar asked, gesturing to the down team SSNN. They got aura. Even so, I unfortunately cannot force it to recover faster. Ozpin informed, it would seem someone in Tyrion's group had the ability to drain or forcibly weaken their aura. How strange. Hey, why the glum face? Both Oscar and Jewel looked down to see one of Tangle's eyes slowly open up as a smile returned. Tangle, Jewel exclaimed with worry, especially as she tried to force herself to stand. You should be resting. No chance. Tangle struggled, but even as she used her tail to support herself, she almost fell over. My home is threatened. I'm not gonna let a bunch of jerks push my friend around. I think there's a reason though we're all kept here. Oscar said as he seemed to voice what Ozpin was telling him in his head. You said you were friends with Sonic, right? That's when Jewel figured it out. We're being used as bait. Those jerks took my scroll, Tangle groaned as she stood up straight. And knowing Sonic, he's probably made it here by now. Is there something we can use to signal him? Oscar asked. The doors are sealed shut and the only one strong enough to do anything are down for the count. He gestured to the down team SSNN. What about an electric box? Emilia wondered as she stepped in finally. Places like this have to have a source of power, right? Maybe we can use it to force the lights to overpower or something. There should be a fuse box down here. Jewel confirmed. If we overload the fuses, but it could also start a fire above us. If Sonic's here, then he'll see it and bust us out. Tangle groaned as she wrapped her tail around her body to keep her back straight and prevent herself from falling over. Come on, Jewel, this is our home. We got to defend it, right? Tangle, Jewel's look of worry was still present in her eyes, but a slight smile appeared on her face. That's so like you. Even Venom can't keep you down, can it? Heck no. Tangle smirked. Now where's this dang box? Should be in the back, I believe. Jewel assumed. Listen up, everyone. She called to all her fellow villagers as she hovered slightly. If anyone can find the fuse box, please call out as loudly as you can. We may have a way out of this. Sonic the Hedgehog is risking his life for us. Tangle called as well. But right now, he's going to need our help. Those guys that attacked us, they're using an ambush to trip him up and all his friends. Well, I say, not on my watch. And not in my hometown. It's our turn to help him. Let's stand back up and fight back. I'll fight back. One villager stood up. I want to help Sonic too. Me too. This is our home. We're with ya, Tangle. We're with ya. We're with ya. Then spread out and find that fuse box. Tangle shouted, but she nearly fell over, only for Oscar and Jewel to quickly catch her. But let's have the medics keep looking after Neptune and his friends, Jewel said, looking toward the said medics, all of them nodding as they continued to tend to the down team SSNN. Please, let us now the second the box is found. It may be our only way out. Oscar called out. With that, all the villagers began to spread out as best as they could. Despite the cramped conditions, they worked together to get to the surrounding walls, or relay messages across the basement as they looked for the fuse box that was hopefully down here. Oscar, Emilia stepped by his nephew's side. If and when we get out of here, you stay out of sight, you got it. She's right. Ozpin agreed. Those men work for Salem. And if they make the connection between us, they'll kill me. Oscar muttered as fear filled his being, prompting his aunt to put a firm hand on his shoulder. Not gonna happen. Not while I'm here, she assured him with a smile, which caused Oscar to smile back. And if things went well, best case scenario, he might actually meet Sonic the Hedgehog, the golden hero, and he might be able to help him. And even if he couldn't right away, perhaps there was something Oscar himself can do that can help Sonic in some way. At least he hoped. That's if they do manage to get out of this place anyway. As much as he wanted to hold out hope, he was very scared. While meeting Sonic was the best case scenario, the worst case is that he, his aunt, and everyone here could very well die. That thought alone was near paralyzing for him. It will be alright, Oscar. Ozpin consoled him internally. We're going to be okay. I promise you. Despite the oddity of having a 1,000-year-old warrior inside his head, he did speak in a tone that did seem to calm and comfort the young man. Multiple streaks of blue and dark blue circled around the perimeter of Spiral Hill and repeatedly clashed with each other. With Sonic circling around from the left, and Metal circling around from the right, the two finally met and collided with each other, creating a shockwave that blew apart several surrounding trees. And even as their heads butted against each other, Sonic tried to push himself forward with his natural speed while Metal did the same with his jet boosters. Well, this feels familiar. Sonic observed before they both shot upwards with dash boost-like attacks and clashed in midair with Sonic throwing out multiple rapid kicks, but Metal was quick enough to dodge all of them before rapidly spinning around to kick Sonic across his face and send him crashing to the ground. Sonic groaned as he held his head, but blinked and saw Metal on him instantly, prompting Sonic to zoom away just before he reached him. "I don't got time to waste around with you though," Sonic said as he went back towards Spiral Hill. "I gotta get back there before." Metal suddenly appeared in front of Sonic and activated his black shield, which Sonic was unable to avoid as he slammed face first into the diamond-like barrier. Metal deactivated that and opened his palms to fire multiple energy blasts at Sonic, who was forced back to avoid the rapid blasts, but Metal quickly closed the distance and tried to slash at him with his claws, though Sonic stepped backwards to try and avoid the swipe. "Nice try, but I'm not gonna fall for slash asterisk." Within the span of a single blink, before Sonic could react, something extended from Metal's arm and made contact. The force from the initial swing did send Sonic flying back, crashing through multiple trees before the blue hedgehog finally came to a stop, laying in the middle of a pile of devastated wood tree bark. What the heck was that? Sonic rubbed his head as he knew something had struck him, but it wasn't Metal's claws. He would soon get his answer, however, as Metal Sonic hovered above him and gasped as he saw a scythe-like blade magnetically attached to his right hand. That's when Sonic noticed the red-like attachment on Metal's back, which looked like a half of something as it was on his left side. That attachment unfolded to reveal a secondary curved blade, which also attached itself to the back of Metal's left hand. He was now dual-wielding a pair of scythe-like blades as gun attachments now seemed fully equipped and modified to Metal's own hands, which glowed orange as his own power coursed through them. Sonic's eyes widened in shock before he growled in anger. That was Crescent Rose. Only it was now torn apart and remodeled into a new weapon that seemed to be a part of Metal Sonic now. Even if he didn't have a mouth, Sonic could practically see the taunting grin on his metallic counterpart's face. "Alright, now you made me mad." Sonic dashed straight for Metal, colliding with him as the two locked and spiraled against each other, colliding and striking each other at rapid pace. Atlas. The audience began to quiet down as Weiss stood straight in a bright white gown. Spotlights shined down onto her as the light reflected off the gown itself, almost as if it were made of crystallized snowflakes, which made it look quite shiny. An invisible hard-light barrier was soon raised around the stage, separating Weiss from the audience, though they could still see her clearly. Some didn't even seem to notice, save for those who stood closest to the stage and the orchestra, but they paid it no mind. The conductor raised his wand and the music began. It started with violins as they played the music akin to a classic symphony, and that's when Weiss began to sing. "I have stepped out of the castle." She walked forward, carrying a certain amount of grace with her. "I have seen the world." She glanced up towards the balcony where her father was, who looked with a condescending smirk, while her brother just looked with curiosity. "I saw only black and white, only to have my views twisted and twirled. I was lost, trapped, and cold." That's when the music began to rise and perk up slightly, with the pace increasing. "But now, I have broken free. My world views shattered. My life, colorful and bold." She then kicked her heels together, making sure to light a small spark at the back of the hem, which caused what appeared to be a fire to form all around her dress, much to the shock of the audience as they gasped in surprise. Even Jacques, Whitley, Fort Lee, and Iona were completely stunned as they saw the flames rise over Weiss, while she twirled in her gown. But to everyone's astonishment, she was not the least bit burned. In fact, when the flames reached the top, her outfit appeared to undergo a drastic change. It was no longer bright and pure white, but a shiny sky blue, with a pattern of bold red roses spreading all over. The front of her dress was also open, exposing one of her legs and allowing her more room to move as she began to dance to the music, which now picked up immensely. The keyboards in the symphony played a melody before it followed through with heavy drums and brass, and violins strumming almost as if they were like guitars. Take off, at the speed of sound. Bright lights, colors all around. Weiss sung as the audience couldn't take their eyes off her, especially as the lights on the stage above her shined down and displayed a variety of bright colors including blue, pink, red, green, yellow, and indigo. She even danced more boldly, dashing across the stage and throwing her arms out and around her. I'm running wild, living fast and free. Got no regrets inside of me. What? Jacques pulled out his scroll again and looked over the lyrics of the song he was given. This isn't part of the song. He rummaged through so much that he didn't even notice Whitley just staring at his sister. The colors on the stage, reflecting off her dress, danced in his own eyes. And as he saw the colors, certain emotions began to flow through him before he even realized. This is my escape. I'm running through this world and I'm not looking back. Weiss continued to sing and dance like a master ballerina as the colorful spotlights shined and moved all around her. 'Cause I know I can go where no one's ever gone, and I'm not looking back. But how will I know when I get there? And how will I know when to leave? We've all gotta start from somewhere. And it's right there for me, the possibilities are never ending. She moved back closer towards the rear stage as a pedestal rose up from the floor underneath, one that had a block of ice that had a bright white baton inside, one that had spiraling stripes of red and blue inside. She flashed her hands backwards, creating two glyphs on opposite sides of the block, which exerted enough force to shatter the ice, much to the awe of the audience before Weiss grabbed the baton and spun it in front of her and then tossed it up. While airborne, the baton shined as the right end was lit on fire with red flames and the left end with blue flames. I'm gonna reach for the stars. Weiss sung as she hung her left hand upward to catch the baton and spun it all around her, generating a spinning wheel of red and blue flames with the dust inside. Although they look pretty far, I'm gonna find my own way and take a chance on today. She threw her spinning baton forward, sending wheels of red and blue flames seemingly towards the audience, many of whom screamed, but were in surprise to see the waves of red and blue fire bounce off the hard light barrier like special effects, which caused many of the audience to look with even brighter expressions. Ooh. The audience looked in awe, with Iona practically bouncing in her seat while her father just watched, completely stunned. That's not supposed to be in the act, Jacques exclaimed as he felt his temper spike, while Whitley continued to sit, as a small smile slowly graced his face. A fire baton, Pietro commented as he looked to Tails and Penny, both smiling mischievously. It wasn't that hard to make, Tails said. The multicolored dust is pretty much the same thing as fireworks. And it was all Weiss' idea, Penny added. She wanted those specific colors within the flames. Well, I wonder where she got that idea from, Pietro said with a knowing smirk, looking towards Blaze, who simply shrugged. I'm glad to know I made such an impression in the short time I've known her, Blaze said. Though she knew the flames did come from her, the colors were another story. The blue was an obvious sign of who else might have inspired her, but those red roses, those must have been from that RWBY girl Tails and Penny spoke of. It made her curious to meet the girl herself. And fire is not the only type of dust that baton has. Penny smiled brightly. Keep watching. Weiss spun her baton around in all directions, but as she did, she pushed a certain button while also activating her semblance and channeled it through the dust inside like she would do with Myrtonaster. Multiple glyphs formed around her like a spiral as columns of ice began to rise, each one after rising slightly higher than the one before it like a staircase. The sky with stars so bright. The colors feel so right. She continued to sing as she hopped and danced along the spiraling staircase of ice columns. I've never felt like this, I'll keep on running. The possibilities are never ending. I see it, and now it's all within my reach. Endless possibilities. As she continued to hop and dance upwards, she spun her baton more and more to creating rings of red and blue fire along each ice column, breaking each column that she had passed over. I see it now. Colors all around. It's always been inside of me. Endless possibility. She finally reached the tallest and final ice column near the back of the stage, which ended up being the last column left as she had destroyed all the ones before. She slammed the red flaming end of her baton on the top of the column, shattering that while also using a glyph combined with her flames to propel her straight upwards like a rocket, much to the awe and surprise of the audience. "This kid's got guts," Joanna said with an impressed smile as she and her teammates, along with Silver, continued to watch the show. "Not the type of a concert you'd expect with this sort of thing," Fiona commented. "I never saw your kinds of concerts, but I am loving this. Look at her," Silver exclaimed with an excited smile. "She looks almost just when Blaze moves, only dancing not fighting. She's incredible." "Yeah, not bad," May agreed with a slight smile herself, sharing one with Robin. They both saw how Weiss handled herself during the meeting at the rally in the Schnee mines, as well as her helping to protect all the trapped Faunus workers inside. Seems like she was more of a rebel than she let on. And just like that, their opinion on the youngest Schnee daughter improved a great deal. "Stop the concert." Jacques was prepared to leave the balcony to stop the event himself. "This is not what we agreed to." But before he could leave, a pair of bodyguards stood in his way. "Get out of my way. Sir, for your own safety, you cannot interfere," one guard told him. "You work for me. I am ordering you to halt this event," Jacques exclaimed furiously. "And what do you mean by safety? Miss Schnee informed us and the event staff of her use of dust for this performance, which is why the hard light barrier is in place," the second guard explained. "If you go down there now, you are likely to suffer serious injury," the first guard added. "What? I don't, when did she?" Jacques looked like he was on the verge of having a mental breakdown. But only with a flash of light on the stage behind him did he turn back around to something that made him and Whitley gasp in audible shock, with the sole son of the family, standing up from his seat. Multiple glyphs had formed in the air around Weiss while she was airborne, including one at her feet that propelled her upwards. She switched the dust settings on her baton while airborne. This type of dust was revealed to be lightning, the bright yellow kind, as she left a trail behind her as she reached one glyph before shooting herself off at an angle to another one, leaving a trail of lightning behind her as she did so. She reached one glyph and then shot up at another, and then another, and then another, moving at various angles that one would see a professional huntress utilize when in combat. The audience couldn't take their eyes off the flashy display, especially when it looked like that Weiss was finishing up, all while the music continued to play. She fell straight downwards, using a series of glyphs to slow and halt her descent and land safely on her feet. She held her hands upward, gesturing to the bright yellow silhouette of a warrior made of bright golden light, the structure appearing similar to that of a constellation. Is that?" Whitley stuttered. "The golden hero," Iona exclaimed from her spot, prompting Fort Lee to grab her and sit her back down. But even so, he couldn't take his eyes off the image either. And neither could anybody else in the audience. "Oh, she didn't." Robin snickered while the rest of her teammates, including Fiona, tried hard to suppress their laughter. Silver found himself both laughing and cheering at the same time. "She did." Tails smiled like a naughty little child, knowing this was coming. "My word," Pietro was speechless at this. "I believe that is supposed to be Sonic," Penny commented. "How clever. She couldn't come up with a complex image, so she used her glyphs and dust to create an image akin to a constellation. Which in turn follows along with her lyrics referencing the stars. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the entirety of Atlas is seeing this, correct?" Blaze asked Seal. "They are," the Atlesian girl confirmed, though the Schnee Dust Company made the effort to broadcast to the other kingdoms as well. Pietro and Tails both found themselves laughing at the whole thing, with even the man wiping a slight tear from his eye. Blaze found herself smirking as well. "Whoa," Marrow exclaimed in shock. "Now that's something," Elm stated. "Very impressive." Vine nodded with a smile of approval. Marrow chuckled. "Way to serve it to those rich dirtbags." "Maybe, but I feel like it's more than just that," Clover said as he looked to Harriet, who couldn't take her eyes off her scroll either. "Sonic started something at Beacon when he went gold, and she's helping it to spread." He then put a hand on his subordinate's shoulder, causing her to turn towards him. "I think we can all learn a thing or two from that, can't we?" he said with an encouraging smile. Harriet looked back to the image of the electric constellation-esque image of Super Sonic being broadcasted live across the kingdom. And as she did, she couldn't help but think back to Beacon when she saw Super Sonic for the first time. A brilliant golden warrior, bringing victory to a battle where defeat was all but inevitable. In a swarm of darkness, monsters, and death, a golden light lit up the sky and wiped it all away. It was true that she was envious of that at first. But now, something else began to fill her being. Was this hope? Weiss, Winter couldn't stop herself from smiling. She took her father's attempt at self-serving imagery and turned it into a rallying symbol of hope for those who began to look up to and admire Sonic since his transformation into Super Sonic and saving the Kingdom of Vale. Never has she been prouder of her younger sister than just now. Looking to her side, Winter caught the sight of Ironwood, whose own eyes were widening at the image himself, clearly in awe. She reached over and placed her hand on his shoulder, causing him to gasp slightly as he turned around and looked to see his right hand looking with a smile. And before he knew it, James found himself smiling too. The electric constellation spectacle went out in a flash of light, but Weiss wasn't done as she continued to dance with her dust baton that was switched back to the fire setting, red and blue flames coming out from opposite ends before she sung again. I see it, and now it's all within my reach. Endless possibility. The colors all around. It's always been inside of me. Just take my hand, we're gonna reach for the stars. She conjured a ring of glyphs along the edge of the stage and rode across it, holding her hand out to the audience, like she was urging each and every one of them to take her hand. Just take my hand. We'll take a chance tonight. Reach for the stars, tonight. She swirled herself to the very center of the stage and thrusted her baton upwards, sending a spiraling column of red and blue flames before it all exploded like brilliant fireworks, all in the middle of a large glyph in the air that had the Schnee family emblem on it, which now shined red, blue, and white all together. The music came to an end, and as did the song. Weiss stood in the middle of the stage, her hands and baton held up high as she took a second to look around at the audience that seemed stunned silent. Until nearly every single person in the seat stood up and gave a standing ovation. Cheers and applause echoed throughout the entire concert hall with everyone cheering and clapping as loudly as they could. Weiss couldn't stop herself from smiling as she heard it all. Her eyes scanned the audience in front of her and saw that not a single person was frowning or booing. She even looked up to all the various balconies to see many of the people clapping and applauding too. She first spotted Iona clapping and cheering loudly, while also jumping up and down. The sight made her smile even brightly. She also saw Fort Lee looking stunned speechless. She saw the same thing with the Marigold family, too stunned for words to even clap or cheer, no skin of her bones for that one. She also saw Amancio Glass clapping slowly and sarcastically with a deep frown. Again, no skin of her bones for him either, she wasn't looking to impress a criminal like him. That's when she looked towards the balcony with her family. She saw Whitley standing and clapping with a wide smile on his face. This led to her to give a smiling wink in his direction. And when she saw her father, Jacques was grabbing the railing of the balcony with both his hands so hard that it looked like he was trying to rip it apart. She could see him gnashing his teeth together as he looked ready to pop a vein and explode in a blind rage. Weiss gave a taunting smirk in his direction, making sure he saw it before bowing mockingly in his direction. And then gave a genuine bow to the cheering and clapping audience. No doubt he's gonna be furious at this, maybe take away my privileges and even try and disown me entirely for what I did. Weiss thought to herself, that'll cut me off from our family's company for sure. But that's alright. I got all the data I could with my access and gave it all to Tails. If there's any connection to Eggman, he'll find it. Sonic, RWBY, I really do hope you saw that. You two helped me to see the world around me, showed me what kind of person I want to be, thank you. I couldn't ask for better friends. I hope you're both doing alright. Sonic skipped backwards rapidly to avoid the relentless side slashes from Metal Sonic's crescent edge, with each slice carving through tree and rock alike while Metal continued to advance on his organic counterpart with no signs of stopping. Really wish I still had Caliburn right now. Sonic stopped in his tracks as Metal appeared over him and tried to slice his dual scythe blades with an X formation, only for Sonic to zip in and grab Metal by his wrists before he could perform the action. Sonic then used this moment with Metal's hands tried to dash through the forest at high speeds, making sure to slam Metal into various rocks and trees, doing his best to not let go of his metallic nemesis. However, Metal Sonic saw what he was doing and quickly adapted as he shifted his own angle and fired his jet boosters to blast himself and Sonic through the entire forested area, making sure to move further and further away from Spiral Hill. Fortunately, Sonic acted quickly as he performed a point-blank spin dash onto Metal's front and smashed him through several trees and rocks. He's trying to keep me away from RWBY and the others. I can't waste time. I could use chaos control to zap myself there, but Metal would just follow me. I hate to leave the others alone right now, but I gotta cause as much chaos as I can right now. Sonic thought as he sped at Metal and performed a blue tornado attack to trap him inside the vortex. Sonic knew it wouldn't hold him long and prepared for Metal to make his next move. But he didn't expect a wave of orange electricity to slice through the vortex itself and gun straight for him. Whoa! Sonic just barely dodged it by swerving to his side and was soon hit by another similar attack that struck him with explosive force and sent him flying up into the air. Sonic gasped as he saw Metal flying right above him, with Crescent Edge's side blades surging with the same kind of power as his V. Maximum overdrive. While airborne, Metal rapidly sliced his blades to send multiple electric waves Sonic's way. Though he couldn't dodge in midair, Sonic performed a spin dash attack to brace himself as he shot straight down while also protecting himself from the frontmost attacks that did connect, further blasting him to the ground. The force of the impact blew away everything within a 20-foot radius. Sonic, however, shook it off despite the orange twinge of static appearing all over him before he sped away with Metal flying and descending upon him in hot pursuit. His palms opened up as he fired a volley of orange lightning blasts at Sonic, all while Sonic continued to swerve and avoid most of the attacks. "Just how much dust did Eggman stuff inside you?" Sonic called out to him. As he ran, he noticed Metal flying faster and catching up to him quickly to swing his blades at him again, but just like before Sonic caught Metal by his arms before he could swing and tried to dash forward at intense speeds, with Metal using his jet booster to boost himself at equal speeds in the opposite direction, leaving the two locked against each other as a whirlwind kicked up around their clash. "Ya know, we're causing quite a bit of damage here, huh? A bit careless of you, don't you think?" Sonic grinned knowingly as he glanced behind Metal and saw a series of glowing red eyes from the shadows of the wrecked forest behind him. That's the thing with being on a death world like Remnant. Always gotta watch. Sonic stopped running for the tiniest second, allowing for Metal's thrusting to be the victor in their clash as he boosted him forward. But Sonic spun on his heels and began to spin around like a blue twister, using Metal's own speed to add to the momentum before finally letting go. Back. He let go and ended up through Metal into a large pack of oncoming Grim. Metal was struck against them like a bowling ball striking multiple pins, crashing through many that sent the demon-like beasts flying in all directions. Though Metal Sonic did stop crashing and rolling, he didn't get much time to recover as a Barangel jumped onto him with a roar and began smashing the robot relentlessly, until Metal sliced upwards with Crescent Rose to bisect the gorilla-like Grim completely. Before he knew it, Metal ended up being surrounded by over 24 Grim that had been drawn in by all the chaos. That included Beowulfs, Ursai, Sabers, and a few more Barangay. They all roared and howled as they charged at Metal Sonic, who continued to slice Crescent Edge, tearing through the frontmost before it looked like he would be overpowered as they all piled onto him. This gave Sonic a chance to boost away as quickly as he could. "Hate to leave ya in such a jam, but I got somewhere B. We'll pick this up later, K." He called out as he sped around more incoming Grim that tried to attack him, leaving them to join the rest of their brethren in swarming the machine. A blast of powerful orange lightning surged throughout the woods as multiple Grim were ripped apart and blasted away by Metal's V maximum overdrive attack. Just like before, such an attack spent a great deal of energy and would have normally left him powerless while his internal systems recharged. Fortunately, he had a reserve of dust for extra fuel, which he used to boost himself into the air and avoid more Grim that attempted to overwhelm him. "Well played, Sonic. I should expect nothing less from my double," Metal thought as he watched a dash of blue move closer to Spiral Hill. "But this could also work to my own advantage." He turned gaze down and saw more Grim incoming from the ground and followed the trail of where they originated from. He could see even more Grim in the distance, including Nevermores that flew through the air. It was hard to believe that such Grim were drawn to them this quickly. Perhaps it was the fear the villagers of Spiral Hill were all feeling right now, or perhaps, Metal looked at his own metallic hand. Were they sensing his own anger? His own negativity? He was inorganic, sure. But he still felt anger and other similar negative emotions as well. But if he could actually draw Grim to him. Yes, this will work very nicely. Back at Spiral Hill, Amy brought her Pico down towards Tyrion, who leapt back to avoid the smash before he rushed at her and lashed out with not only his tail, but even his hands which glowed purple as well as his eyes. Amy did her best to block and parry all three of the attacks as the laughing scorpion Faunus moved around her with such chaotic grace and agility, making it harder for Amy to counter. She looked as if she spotted an opening as she swung her hammer from a lower angle at the right, but Tyrion caught the hammer with his tail, wrapping it around the pole and lunging his glowing hands to her head. Though Amy was briefly startled by this, she felt nothing from the contact and used this to let go of her hammer and grabbed Tyrion by his head and pulled him down to a kick to his jaw, which forced him to let go of the Pico, which she used to swing into his side, striking his right arm and sending him rolling across the ground. Once again, Amy was pelted by a volley of lasers shot from the eye tattoo of Earl Shen as he rushed her with his own spear. Though Amy did manage to block the rapid laser blasts with her Pico, Earl Shen was able to close the distance as the tip of his spear lit with lightning, which he swung at Amy. She tried to block it by the pole of her hammer, though this left her open for Earl Shen to shoot her with a point-blank beam from his head to blast her into the ground. "You are strong, especially for someone who does not wield aura," Earl Shen complimented, "but even you can only last so long against my third eye semblance. It can carve through even Grim like a knife through butter. Surrender now." "No way," Amy exclaimed in defiance. She performed a spindish and shot up at Earl Shen, striking him in the chest to knock him into the air before she held her Pico up high and brought it down onto him while airborne to smash him to the ground. "You're a huntsman. You're supposed to be better than this. Why are you working for a group of murders when you're supposed to be protecting people from guys like them?" Earl Shen still held his spear however and pressed a button on it that caused the rear of it to open and unleash a whirlwind, which pushed Amy back and allowed him to ascend to the sky before he came down, shooting more third eye beams at her as he closed the distance with the wind from his lance, spun it around to generate more lightning and tried to strike her, only for Amy to use her tornado hammer move and create a vortex around her that blocked Earl Shen's attack as he was forced back. "I did once believe a huntsman's sole duty was to protect the innocent. And I upheld that creed to the best of my abilities," Earl Shen began, with Amy not appearing to notice Tyrion scurrying around the surrounding buildings, trying to get into her blind spot. "But with every foe I've defeated, be they Grim or people, a new adversary only rose to take their place. You could slay 100 enemies, but 1,000 more will await you." Huntsmen claim to make progress in changing this world for the better, but against an endless black tide, no progress is truly made. You can only stand in one place against the darkness. Or, you could control it. Join it. Use its power to control those who cannot be. I take no joy in my actions, but the only true way to protect this world is not to fight the darkness but to become its master. A shame that you are too naive to see it any other way. It seemed like Tyrion had the drop on Amy, positioning himself from the alley directly behind her. With all the force he could muster, and standing on all fours like a wild predator, Tyrion leapt straight for the pink hedgehog, his stinger pointed straight outward. Only for Amy to limbo underneath the strike, much to the shock of Tyrion and Earl. Amy then swiftly grabbed Tyrion by his tail and pulled him into a swing of her Pico. Though he caught it by crossing his dual-arm blades, she never let go of his tail. This did seem to leave her open as Earl Shen dashed forward with a propelling force of wind from his spear and lunged the electric tip at her, but Amy pulled her hammer back to block the thrust, which did leave her open for Tyrion to slash at her. Fortunately, she endured as she still held his tail and pulled him in to kick his face before spinning around, while still holding onto Tyrion's tail to slam him into Earl Shen and knock them both down. "You don't have aura, do you?" Tyrion inquired as he stood up, cracking his neck and facing Amy directly. "Seems the good doctor was right on the money on that. Guessing your semblance lets you poison or disrupt aura, then," Amy assumed. "Ooh, a clever little girl, aren't you?" Tyrion chuckled. "Tell me something, why follow that blue rodent? I'm not about to explain myself to a psychopathic maniac like you." Amy stated. Tyrion feigned a hurt expression. "Oh, you wound me, little hedgehog," he said before cackling. "I am merely a humble servant of my queen. Your queen is about to get knocked off her throne," Amy threatened, which earned a growl and a glare from Tyrion. "So how about I send you back to her in a full-body cast?" She charged at Tyrion, who snarled as he lunged at her as well. At the same time, Knuckles roared as he threw his fist out at Hazel, who threw his own flaming charged fist at him as well. Both fists met each other in the face, which did send them both skidding back quite a bit, only for Vermilion to dash past Hazel as he flung his extendable flail towards Knuckles, who swung his right guillotine blade to bat the spiked ball down to the ground, though it was quickly retracted as Vermilion closed in and spun his weapon around like a true master, flinging it at Knuckles, who tried to parry it as best as he could. But as he seemed to focus on Vermilion, it left him open for Hazel to dash around him as he swung his arms to throw out arcs of fire and lightning at the red echidna, who was unable to dodge it as the attack struck and sent him crashing into a building. Vermilion and Hazel stood together as they waited for their foe to recover. "He's strong," Hazel observes. "Hard to believe someone as strong as him doesn't have aura." "Aliens," Vermilion scoffed. "Can't believe someone like him is wasting his power defending weaklings." The ground underneath the two began to shake slightly, much to their confusion, before Knuckles himself shot out of the ground, both guillotine blades pointed outward as he spun like a drill, easily carving through the ground as he appeared directly over the two. He held guillotine upwards and brought them down on Vermilion first, who raised the pole of his flail to block it. But with Knuckles' superior strength, he easily shattered through the pole, devastating the flail completely, and smashed his blades into Vermilion's shoulders. The boar-masked man screamed in pain from the impact as Knuckles swung both his feet down and delivered a double kick into Vermilion's chest that sent him through not only the building he was just in, but even 3 more behind it. Right as Knuckles landed, however, Hazel grabbed him in the form of a bear hug, which also burnt and electrocuted the red echidna simultaneously. But Knuckles gritted his teeth as he pulled back his head to slam into Hazel's face, though the man stood his ground, which Knuckles noted before he slammed his head into Hazel's face again, and again, until the third strike, where Hazel finally caved under the rapid headbutts and let Knuckles go. The man was briefly disoriented before he recovered to face Knuckles again. "Your semblance, it dulls your pain, doesn't it?" Knuckles assumed, only causing Hazel to narrow his eyes. "That explains why you put raw dust in your body without even flinching. And probably why you don't have a weapon either." Knuckles smirked as he put his dual axes away, to Hazel's confusion. "You seem like a real warrior. But why don't we see which one of us is the better?" He pounded his own fists together and made the gesture for Hazel to come at him. The man glared before he went to Knuckles, swinging a flaming punch at him, which Knuckles blocked with one fist before throwing his other one out, which Hazel caught with his bare hands. Hazel pulled his other fist back and swung it into Knuckles' face, sending a wave of fire and lightning over him before Hazel performed multiple rapid strikes against him, the speed of his punches being further enhanced by the lightning dust it seemed. However, Knuckles quickly adapted to Hazel's punching speed and threw out his own rapid punches to counter Hazel's before throwing his hands outward to parry and push away Hazel's arms, exposing his front as Knuckles leapt into the air and performed an uppercut to Hazel's jaw, sending him upwards. But while airborne, Hazel brought his hands together. The dust from his hands came together to form a ball of fire and lightning, which he brought down onto Knuckles, blasting him down to the ground and creating a crater on impact. The attack didn't stop there as Hazel landed on Knuckles, making sure to lock him down with his legs as he rapidly swung his fists into his face, roaring as he struck with all the force he could muster. Vermilion recovered from Knuckles' attack, pulling himself from the debris of the room he was in with a groan. "Little rodent," he scowled, stepping forward slightly. Though the ground he stepped in felt wet. That's when he noticed the room he was in appeared to be a single bathroom. The toilet and sink had been smashed to pieces upon his crash, and water was spraying everywhere. Vermilion felt the water in his hands before his fist clenched. And underneath his mask, a sinister smirk crossed his face. Hazel continued to pound Knuckles with everything he had while still keeping him pinned. Knuckles endured it all as saw Hazel raising both his fists up high and tried to bring them down, only for Knuckles to grab them both with his own hands as he held the man back. "You're strong, and you seem pretty straightforward," Knuckles said. "So why are you working for a monster like Salem?" I could ask the same kind of thing. Hazel replied. Why do you serve Ozpin's murderous crusade? Knuckles growled as he pulled Hazel down and slammed both his hands and Hazel's own into the side of his head, creating a flash of fire and lightning that got into his eyes and forced them closed, weakening his grip and allowing Knuckles to escape before he pounded Hazel in the side of his head to knock him down. We're not doing this for Ozpin's sake, we're doing it cause it's the right thing to do. Knuckles said as Hazel held his jaw slightly. Your master is planning on destroying this entire world and you're helping her. I don't know what kind of beef you got with Ozpin but he killed my sister. Hazel interrupted, surprising Knuckles. That moment of surprise gave Hazel an opening for him to grab Knuckles by his head with one hand, lift him up before repeatedly pounding him with flaming electrical strikes to his chest. All she ever wanted was to help people. And he sent her to her death. And she wasn't the only one. He exclaimed as he continued to pound Knuckles. Countless other children died because of him. He fills their head with false hope, thinking they can change the world, when all he does is have them walk into the Grimm's mouth. He threw another fist forward, but Knuckles caught that as well. Ozpin isn't perfect. I've seen his dirty secrets too and I'm not a fan of how he does things either. He punched Hazel in the wrist of the hand that held him, forcing him to let go before Knuckles decked him across the face. But even he is 1,000 times better than that Grimm which you serve. If you got a problem with kids dying, then stop helping the monster who's actually killing them and help us fight her. You don't think I've tried that? Hazel recovered as he pounded Knuckles across his face. The first time I met Salem, I killed her over and over again. He brought both his fists to the top of his head. The most she was ever gone was a few hours. Salem can't be stopped. She's a force of nature. At least with her, we can bring down the corrupt order that Ozpin built on lies. He tried to smash his fists onto him again, but Knuckles caught Hazel by his wrists. And how many more people have to die for all that to happen? Exclamation mark. How many people did you kill while working for someone like her? Question mark quote. Knuckles hauled Hazel over his head and slammed him down onto the ground behind him. I don't know your sister, but if she was a huntress, someone who wanted to help people, how do you think she'd feel if she saw you now? Exclamation mark quote. That caused Hazel to glare as he tried to pick himself up, only for Knuckles to pound his stomach, knocking the wind out of him. Just because you can't feel pain doesn't mean you can't be hurt. I know someone who has a similar semblance to yours, don't go thinking you're invincible because of it. Do yourself a favor and stand down. You really want Salem gone? Then surrender and tell us everything about her, cause we got a plan that'll put her down for good. Don't drag your sister's memory any more in the mud than you have already. Hazel looked at the echidna questionably. They were enemies, and yet it sounded like he was trying to offer him a way out. The look in his eyes actually confirmed it. There was sincerity behind his words, and at the same time, a warning glare, like he was silently telling him that if he kept fighting, Knuckles won't hesitate to fight back. The message was silent but simple. Either help or stay out of the way. Suddenly, a blast of water shot out from the side, striking Knuckles, surprising both him and Hazel. And before Knuckles could counter, all the water converged and formed a bubble around the echidna, sealing him inside and depriving him of his oxygen. You let your guard down. Vermilion stepped forward, his hands outstretched. Word of advice, alien. Make sure your enemy is dead. Otherwise, they'll blindside you just like this. Take that lesson to your grave. Knuckles. Amy happened to witness this as her fight moved closer to that of her friend. She rushed to try and help him, only for Tyrion and Earl Shen to block her path, crossing their tail and spear respectively. Tyrion twirled his finger. You're not finished with us. Earl lunged his lightning spear at her, which she blocked with her Pico while Tyrion leapt over to pounce at her. Vermilion, Hazel grunted as he tried to push himself up. Not many can actually go toe-to-toe like that with you, Hazel. Vermilion noted. That's actually impressive. That semblance, it's from one of those students, Hazel said as he recovered and looked with disapproval. Oh, don't give me that look. Vermilion shook his head. I didn't kill them. I need them alive in order to keep sharing their semblance. Sharing. Knuckles thought as he tried to punch through the bubble and escape. I don't think so. Vermilion saw his intent and tightened the water within the bubble, completely encasing him in it. What a useful semblance. Vermilion said in awe. Between that blue-haired brat and the redhead that can fly, this is quite the combination. We may just have to take those two along with us. He looked at his hand sinisterly. That wasn't the plan, Hazel said seriously. We only take the girl with silver eyes. Nobody else. I doubt Salem will care anyways, but if you're really that set against it. Vermilion grabbed Hazel by his shoulder, and that's when Hazel's own aura formed in a bright yellow before it turned red at Vermilion's touch as Vermilion's own blood-red aura glowed brightly, much to Knuckles' surprise. I could always borrow yours. Your aura and numbing agent already make me feel 100 times better. Thank you, I appreciate it. Suddenly, a dash of blue appeared in between them, breaking off Hazel from Vermilion as Sonic appeared past them. No honor among villains, huh? The blue hedgehog tisked before performing a homing attack at Vermilion to send him flying upwards, forcing him to release his grip on the water around Knuckles, releasing him. Though Vermilion caught himself in the air and hovered in place thanks to the semblance he borrowed from Scarlet, allowing him a chance to watch as Sonic performed multiple rapid homing attacks around Hazel like a blur of blue wind before kicking him in the jaw. Always bailing you out, Knucklehead. Sonic smirked to his recovering friend. I would have gotten out of that easily and you know it. Knuckles grinned back. Water's your weakness, not mine. Sonic. Amy beamed happily as she saw him, despite being on the defensive against the relentless slashes of Tyrion's tail and arm blades as well as Earl Shen's electric spear. You should pay close attention to the foe in front of you, my dear. Tyrion snickered as he lunged his stinger at Amy, only for Sonic to dash in, pick up Amy off her feet and carry her bridal style away. Not a problem when my friend can move as fast as he can. Amy smirked with Sonic towards Tyrion. Or pound as hard as me. Knuckles socked Tyrion in the face to send him skidding and rolling across the ground. Earl Shen lunged his spear at him, but Amy had arrived to swing down her hammer and pin his spear to the ground, leaving him open for Sonic to hit him with a homing attack to his face. Sorry for the wait guys. Sonic apologized. What do we got? 4 creeps who work for Salem. Amy summed up. Ruby, Yang, and Rosa went to look for Tangle and the other villagers, but I think Rough and Tumble went after them. Wait, Rough and Tumble? Sonic questioned. Those 2 morons are here too. Yeah, Amy confirmed. Sonic smirked. Well, knowing our girls, they probably already moped the floor with them. What about Metal Sonic? Knuckles asked. I led him into a horde of Grim. Sonic snickered. That'll keep him busy for a bit. I say we take these guys down now and wait for Metal. That'll make it easier for the kids to rescue everyone and not bear too much of the load. Sounds good to me. Amy smiled. The 3 saw Hazel, Tyrion, and Earl Shen recover and regroup, with Vermilion landing on the building behind them. Let's do this, Knuckles said with determination as he and his friends charged forward. However, as Team Sonic clashed against Tyrion, Hazel, and Earl Shen, Vermilion remained standing on the rooftop, not bothering to engage the aliens in battle. Instead, he turned to look deeper into Spiral Hill, specifically the direction those 2 girls had gone. At the same time, Ruby and Yang seemed quite capable of handling Rough and Tumble on their own, despite the Skunk brothers' new weapons, all while Rosa watched from around the alleyway of 2 buildings alongside. Jewel. Hold still, ya little. Rough unleashed his dust thrower, firing flames, lightning, ice, and wind all at Ruby's direction, but the girl's own natural speed with her semblance allowed her to evade the attacks quickly enough with little issue. She even sped up along the side of one building before zooming forward, avoiding the flames shot at her by Ruff's dust thrower. When she was directly above him, she shot down and sliced Caliburn at him. Even though he blocked it with his weapon, the momentum from her strike was enough to send him smacking into the wall of the building on the other side of the street. Tumble roared as he swung his mace at Yang, who caught the weapon as her hair glowed slightly. Using only a tiny bit of her own accumulated energy, she was able to stand her ground without being pushed back, as well as absorb more from the force from the strike. With the club in her hand, Yang fired off Ember Celica at Tumble's hands, forcing him to drop the mace before Yang threw it away. Yang then shouted as she threw her fist forward, with Tumble mirroring her actions as he flung his fist forward as well. Both of their fists collided before Yang fired her shotgun gauntlets into Tumble fist for a secondary strike. Owie, owie, ow. Tumble waved his hand around before Yang followed through with a punch to his face to knock him to the ground. Seriously. How did these two manage to kidnap an entire town? The blonde questioned to her sister. Blunt objects can still be dangerous, I guess. RWBY shrugged, only for her and Yang to whelp as a blast of ice was shot her way. We're not done yet, Runt. Ruff said as he held his dust thrower again. I got a present for ya, straight from me to you. He unleashed a wide range of flames RWBY's way, forcing her back. But Yang had dashed towards Ruff to throw a fist his way, which he avoided by spin dashing directly over her head. Stink bomber. He dropped a noxious musk over the blonde, covering her in a stinky smell. Ah, yuck. Yang coughed as she tried hard not to breathe in the stinky smell, which was already making her eyes wet. With her distracted, Tumble had recovered enough to appear over her and smash both his hands onto the back of her head. What's the matter? Can't take the stink. Then stay away from the skunks. Tumble said as he pounded Yang's head into the ground. RWBY was outside of the stink cloud, but even then, she could still smell the foul odor and truly pitied Yang. When they got out of this, she would need several showers and would have to wash all her clothes at least 8 times. RWBY cringed as she found the idea of farting on someone as an attack to be beyond disgusting, even for her. Wait, farting, why did that sound familiar? The girl gasped as an idea came to her. Rosa, Jewel, get to the rooftops. Now, RWBY called to them. Okay. The wisp called back as she and Jewel both flew up to the nearest rooftop, just over the stinky cloud. RWBY then dashed past Ruff and into the stink cloud, much to his confusion, pulled Yang away from Ruff once she reached her and stumbled on other side of the street, despite both now smelling awful. RWBY, what are you? Yang said in between coughs. Get down. Trust me. RWBY whispered to her older sister before shouting. Hey, Ruff, is that all you got? Those flames were so cold, they couldn't even melt a marshmallow. Ruff growled in annoyance as he and his brother were still in the middle of the stink cloud. You want heat, you little brat. I'll give you more than you can handle. He aimed his dust thrower, set it to the fire setting, and pulled the trigger. Boom. Asterisk. The entire stink cloud exploded in a flurry of flames as Ruff and Tumble were both sent flying straight up over the rooftops before falling over and landing further back in the opposite direction of the sisters. They hit the ground with swirls in their eyes, groaning as they were barely conscious and no longer able to fight. RWBY gave a wide smile to her confused sister. Tails and Nora did say that farts were flammable. Yang was briefly surprised before a smile appeared on her own face. There's my genius, sis. She ruffled RWBY's head congratulatory. That was wonderful. Jewel congratulated as she and Rosa landed just behind them. I never imagined you'd finish those ruffians so quickly. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yang brushed off. Come on, we gotta find Tangle and the others. RWBY got back to work and walked down the street, moving past the pair. You said they were in the community center, right? Where is that supposed to? Suddenly, an electric knife was jammed into RWBY's back. Though her aura was still up and protected her, the resulting electric current did run through her body, causing her to scream in surprise, much to the shock of Yang and Rosa. RWBY. Both the blonde and Wisp exclaimed. I was hoping those idiots would at least wear you down a little bit more. Jewel smirked before the imposter dropped the disguise and revealed his true form, smirking as he held the electric knife in his hands. But I guess that was expecting a bit too much, wasn't it? Mimic. Yang shouted in anger as she leapt to him, ready to go on the attack. But as she did, she felt her fists hit something solid before she even reached Mimic, almost like some kind of shield. A blade was then extended to strike Yang in the face. The surprise did catch her off guard as she was knocked to the wall. A flash of pink appeared as a mirror glass-like illusion dropped, revealing Neapolitan, who waved her finger at Yang. Hey there, kiddos. Miss me? Mimic grinned menacingly at RWBY. The girl cringed as she never wanted to meet Mimic again after what he put her friends through back at Beacon. She looked past him to see Neo keeping Yang pinned, but Rosa appeared to be free, despite shaking. Rosa. Find Tangle and everyone. Help them. RWBY called to the Wisp. But, RWBY. She wanted to stay and help them. Go. RWBY shouted, leaving no room for arguments. With great reluctance, the pink wisp flew as high as she could before flying away from the battle. Neo looked ready to go after it, only for Mimic to hold his hand out and stop her. Don't bother. Those things are slipperier than they look. Besides, this momentary distraction allowed for RWBY to dash away with her semblance, while Yang fired her shotgun gauntlets at her feet to fly over the villainous pair and land by her sister's side with a glare. These two are what we're really looking for. The mute glared, but stood by Mimic's side in silent acceptance before she used her semblance to take the appearance of Kiro Bronwyn, much to the sister's confusion. "Uncle Kiro," RWBY muttered. "Huh, he isn't your dad. It's rare for me to be wrong, but whatever." Mimic shrugged. "See girls, Neo here has some unfinished business with this guy." He gestured to the illusionary appearance of Kiro before Neo changed back. "Tell us where he is and this will go a lot smoother." "And if we don't," Yang said warningly. Even if she wasn't on speaking terms with her uncle at the time, she wasn't about to sell him out to a backstabbing freak like Mimic. "I was hoping you'd say that." Mimic brandished his knife sinisterly. "See, the doc wants little RWBY here alive. But he didn't have to say she'd be in one piece. As for you, Blondie." He shifted his appearance to take a form identical to Yang. "Pretty sure Kiro'll come to us when I call, don't ya think?" He asked with his voice identical to Yang. This angered both Yang and RWBY a great deal before they drew their respective weapons and engaged their new pair of enemies. Amelia had opened the fuse box, after managing to find it thanks to everyone scattering around the basement of the community center. Once it was found, the woman, her nephew, along with Jewel, who was helping the injured Tangle to stand, made their way closer to it. "Okay, any idea how this works?" Amelia questioned as she got a good look at the interior of the fuse box. She spotted all sorts of wires and switches in the machine and yet nothing related to dust whatsoever. "How do you aliens even power your machines without dust?" "Electricity and other such power sources," Jewel answered. "Oscar, please take Tangle." She handed her friend over to the young lad. "Let me. I'm no electrician expert, but I've had to repair the fuse box of my own museum a couple times, so I know the basics." She hovered up to the box and tried to work it as best as she could. "How are you holding up, Tangle?" Oscar asked as he helped the lemur sling her arm over his shoulder. "Give me a chilladog and I'll be as right as rain," Tangle said with a wincing smile. Oscar only blinked. Did this girl forget that she was just poisoned? How can she still keep a positive attitude about this? "You are right to be concerned for her well-being, Oscar," Ozpin told him mentally. "But she is also quite strong. And if someone is able to keep a strong and positive mentality in such a crisis, then that should be encouraged." "You've seen people like that?" Oscar asked. "Oh, many times. Sonic even being among them," Ozpin said. "Perhaps I should have been a bit more receptive and open towards that attitude myself in our first meeting. And if I had, things wouldn't have fallen out the way that they did." "Well, if he's here, you may get your chance to apologize," Oscar replied. Even if he couldn't see Ozpin's face, Oscar could almost feel him smiling in his mind. "I certainly hope so." "All right," Jewel announced as she held a pair of wires. "Once I join these two, it'll overload the lights upstairs and shine the entire building. If that doesn't act as some sort of signal, I don't know what will." "Won't it start a fire?" Amelia asked. "'Cause we're in a really bad position if that happens." "No, the worst that could happen is that the lights will all short out." "No fires. Hopefully," Jewel muttered. "Well, don't pause for suspense, light this candle," Tangle shouted. With that, Jewel brought the two exposed wires together, causing a twinge of electricity to surge before all the lights in the basement lit up brightly, forcing everyone inside to cover their eyes. The entire community center lit up from the outside as well as all the lights through the interior shined brightly through the windows. The building seemed the brightest in the entire village, especially so since all the other buildings were dark and abandoned. This happened to draw the attention of the flying Rosa as she hung over the rooftops of the village. All the lights quickly shut off in the basement, rendering it near total blackness. Everyone looked around silently in anticipation, waiting for something to happen. But after a few seconds, it seemed like nothing else was going to occur. "Well, that didn't work," Amelia muttered. "Hold on, I think I hear something," Tangle said as she urged everyone to keep quiet. As everyone in the basement quieted down, they all heard the sounds of rummaging coming from the ceiling above them. That sound then traveled through the air ducts, like a tiny little critter scurrying through. A vent in one corner of the basement was opened as a faint pink glow shined from beneath the cover. Until it was forced open from the inside, and Rosa flew out over the trapped villagers, her pink glow providing illumination in the dark basement. As all the villagers looked in awe, Oscar and Amelia were both stunned silent. What is that thing? Oscar exclaimed. It's a wisp. Tangle exclaimed in joy. A what? Amelia questioned. They're aliens, not from our world but another one that Sonic saved a while ago. Jewel explained. Though this is the first time I'm meeting one face to face. I've heard of them as well. Ozpin said mentally to Oscar. They're an energy-based race, but are benevolent in nature. It must be here to help. Rosa beeped in her native language as she hovered through the basement, though not a single person could understand what she was saying. What is it saying? Oscar asked. No idea, but it's probably here to help. Tangle guessed. Rosa happened to hover over the spot where Team SSNN continued to lay, still poisoned but very much alive, though they seemed to be in quite a bit of pain as well as Sage and Nolan were both grunting, like trying to stave off the poison with what strength they had. One medic spotted Rosa's worried disposition and explained it to her. They were poisoned. I don't know how this aura thing works, but apparently each of them has some kind of soul shield that helps heal them. But the bad guys disrupted it and it's having a hard time recovering. Aura. That's right. She recalled RWBY explaining the concept to her, where the people of her world can manifest their souls like barriers around them. It can act as something of a shield as well as heal. Wait, heal. Rosa remembered when she fused with RWBY, supercharged her aura to further enhance her semblance to the point she could run as fast as Sonic. And if these auras can also accelerate healing. Rosa immediately flew into Neptune, being the one she was directly over. Instantly, his body shined as his own aura shined over his body, mixing pink and blue together before he shot up with a gasp. Ah, wah, what just? Neptune felt all around his body while everyone around him, including Tangle, Jewel, Oscar, and Emilia, and even Ozpin himself, were stunned beyond words. Neptune even lifted his shirt to see the spot where Tyrion had struck him with his stinger, only to find his wound was healed completely. I'm okay. Rosa then emerged from his body, much to his further shock as she appeared in front of him and bounced with joy, beeping and squeaking in her native long. I don't know what you did, but you healed me. A smile appeared on the man's face. Thanks a bunch. Can you do the same to my friends? Rosa nodded before flying into Sage next, and just like with Neptune, his own aura shined pink as all his injuries quickly healed, with even the venom inside him being purged from his system. After he shot up in surprise, completely recovered with his body and aura, Rosa repeated the process with Scarlet and Nolan. It's healing them. Oscar blinked. The wisps are made of energy, as of red. Ozpin began to theorize. They could empower Sonic with fantastic abilities and even charge Eggman's machines. I'm guessing that this wisp is supercharging their aura and helping them to heal and recover. Incredible. Now that is really cool. Tangle smiled as they saw the entirety of Team SSNN recover before Rosa flew over back to Oscar's group, with his aunt, Tangle and Jewel. Thanks a ton. Think you can heal me too? Wait. Oscar stopped her. You don't have aura. That wisp, it could only heal Neptune and his friends cause they have aura and she supercharged with her own energy. But you don't have aura, right? If the wisps are able to supercharge energy, then perhaps she could energize that within cells too. Jewel assumed. Cells? Amelia questioned. You know, like blood cells, Jewel replied. Each of our bodies are filled with cells, and each of those cells carry energy. Certain cells are specifically designed to help heal from injury, fatigue and disease. Perhaps if this wisp can charge Tangle's cells, she can heal me too. Tangle finished up. She. How do you know it's a girl? Oscar asked. Tangle smiled knowingly to the boy. Trust me. For some reason, Oscar felt more than a little embarrassed as his face turned red with a blush. He spotted his aunt giving him a teasing smirk with even Oscar in his mind smirking knowingly, which only caused his blush to grow even more. Come on, let's do this, Tangle said to Rosa, who wasted no time in infusing herself into the lemur. Oscar let go as he stepped back and watched as Tangle surged with bright pink energy and she felt all her previous exhaustion and fatigue fade away, even the venom inside was purged. With this newfound energy, the glowing Tangle hopped over her friends and launched her tail forward, its end balling up into a fist that smashed through the sealed doors leading upstairs. She then appeared in front of her newly liberated villagers as Rose's hyper-go-on energy surged through her. Come on, Spiral Village. Time to take our home back. Mantle. Most of the happy huntresses were all laughing their hardest as they continued to sit in their personal headquarters, the live broadcast of the Schnee charity event having come to an end. Robin sat back in her chair as she laughed, while Joanna pounded her fist on the table, and May had to stand up and hold her stomach as she continued to laugh. Okay, that was too good. Joanna said in between laughs. Like the biggest middle finger in the face of the SDC. And from a flipping Schnee no less. Oh, what I wouldn't give to see the look on my family's face right now. May said before laughing again. That girl's got some serious backbone. I'll give her that much. Robin said as she appeared to calm down. Oh, who am I kidding? After what she just did, I'll trust her with everything. I don't get it. Silver shrugged as he looked to Fiona, the only huntress that wasn't laughing. What's so funny? That live concert was intended to be a charity event, but everyone here suspected it was really used as a way to put the spotlight on the Schnee Dust Company and market themselves as the leading protectors of the world. Fiona explained. And yet, Weiss, a Schnee, made it a homage to the golden hero, your friend Sonic, who has become a symbol for everyone in Remnant, especially the Faunus, whom the SDC has been spearheading discrimination against. Oh, I think I get it now. Turn the whole thing against them. Silver smirked. You're friends with Weiss, right? May asked Silver as her chuckles slowly came to an end. Didn't you know this was gonna happen? No clue. She didn't say anything to me. The gray-furred hedgehog replied before smiling again. But I'm not complaining with the results. None of us are. Fiona smiled hopefully as she remembered the image Weiss had made during the event, the electric constellation-like silhouette representing the golden hero, which brought up the memory of the live broadcast of Super Sonic himself saving Beacon in Olive Vale. She remembered feeling a strong sense of hope at seeing that broadcast, a sense of hope that spread all over Mantle, especially among the Faunus population. And with the stunt Weiss just pulled, that hope was going to spread even further like a tidal wave. She would be sure to thank her personally if she ever saw Weiss face to face. Come on, let's head outside. Robin said as she led the group to the door. Mantle's gotta be celebrating after what they just saw. Better make sure they don't go overboard. And join in the party too, right? Joanna asked eagerly, to which Robin turned around and gave a knowing smirk. But as she turned back around and reached for the door. Boom. Asterisk. A large explosion ripped apart the entire wall in front of Robin, sending her flying backwards. Though Silver quickly caught her with his psychokinesis as he and everyone else were forced backwards by the resulting shockwave, with all 5 of them crashing against the wall before falling down. What the hell? May rubbed her head. Is everyone okay? Silver got up first, using his powers to hover over the group before a pair of headlights shone down on all 5 of them. Looking past the clearing smoke, the happy huntresses and Silver the Hedgehog looked on the streets of Mantle. Just outside the group's base appeared to be the Egg Mobile with 4 large legs attached on the lower sides as well as a vast quantity of weapons attached on the upper sides. Except there appeared to be no pilot, save for an E-10,000 R Badnik unit plugged directly into the cockpit. This was a modified Egg Walker. Atlas Military Base. Okay, I am so glad that I watched that. Elm said with a happy grin as she and the rest of the Ace Ops relaxed in the break room within the Atlas military base, having seen the whole SDC concert themselves. I wanted to skip it at first. But I'm sure happy I didn't. Marrow had just as big a grin as anyone else's. Oh, I can only imagine Jacques Schnee keeling over from a heart attack after that. He'd be doing all of us, General Ironwood included, a huge favor. Harriet said with a smirk. I wouldn't go that far, but I do admit that was enjoyable. Vine commented with a small smile himself. Harriet noticed her leader looking her way with a smile. What? It's no secret that you're not Sonic's biggest fan, but I am happy to see that you enjoyed the show, despite the not-so-subtle homage to him. Clover said. I don't hate him, Harriet admitted as she looked down somewhat. We're the Ace Ops, the best of all of Atlas, maybe even the best in Remnant. And then some alien shows up out of nowhere and makes us look like a joke. I don't believe that was his intent. Vine said. He and his team expressed a willingness to cooperate at Beacon. And if it weren't for them, and especially Golden Boy, we'd all probably be dead right now. Elm added. I know, but I just couldn't help but feel jealous is all. Harriet said. Harriet, it's okay. Clover assured her. We all get jealous at times, you're only human. But it's what we do with those feelings that's important. And from what I can see, you seem to be pointing it in a more positive direction. Harriet was briefly surprised by her leader's comment before a slight smile appeared on her face. Maybe I'll work with him, but don't expect me to ask for his autograph or share a smoothie with him or anything. I'll share a smoothie with you. Marrow joked. Don't push it, newbie. Harriet warned playfully, which did earn a genuine laugh from the group. But that laughter came to a sudden end as a large orange light shined in the middle of the break room. And before anyone could react, something small and fast gunned straight for Marrow, smashing him into the wall. Harriet was next as something faster than her grabbed her by her face and smashed her into the wall behind her as well before throwing her into Elm, who caught her, only for that same thing to smash into Harriet's stomach with enough force that it knocked both her and Elm off their feet and sent them rolling across the floor. In that moment however, the line from Kingfisher and a pair of aura hands reached out to bind and ensnare their attacker, all courtesy of Clover and Vine. This allowed them to see just who, or rather what it was. It was clearly a robot, one that bore a striking resemblance to Sonic himself. But unlike Metal Sonic, this machine was gray and silver and appeared to have a more primitive design in comparison. It had a pair of red boosters on its feet akin to Shadow's air shoes, and its face was featureless save for yellow compound eyes with a grid-like pattern to them. This was Mecha Sonic Mk3. Ironwood found it almost impossible to keep his composure. He wanted to laugh so hard at the image of Jacques Schnee throwing a tantrum like a 5-year-old after that performance, but he kept his composure in front of his subordinate who continued to stand at his side. And yet, at the same time, she had a smile on her face as well. But despite that simple smile, Ironwood could see the look in her eyes that she may as well be laughing herself at the same kind of image of her father. But underneath that urge to laugh, Ironwood saw something else. Pride. Pride in her younger sister taking a stand like that in front of the whole world, and the general could hardly blame her. What your sister did was very bold and very noble. The general spoke, causing Winter to turn to him. You must be very proud. Permission to speak freely, sir. Winter requested. Granted. Ironwood allowed with a smile. No words could ever express how proud I am of Weiss right now. Winter praised. My only regret is that our grandfather couldn't see it. I imagine Nicholas would be very proud to know that the direction his granddaughters are going in. Ironwood complimented, making sure to put emphasis on that he was also referring to her, which made Winter smile. Thank you, sir. She nodded. And hopefully it might not be just them. A few hours before the show, Weiss had sent her a message via scroll that Whitley may be having a change of heart, even making the suggestion that the outdated Alaska 130 units be remodeled and repurposed into mining drones for the SDC as to further prevent casualties in the mines. But sadly, though not surprising, their father had turned it down. Weiss did however hope that if Winter could share the idea with Ironwood, he'd be able to have the connections to at least get the ball rolling, maybe put Jacques in a corner where doing so would be the best, if not only, option for him. Though she had yet to relay that message to Ironwood, the notion that Whitley made such a suggestion gave her hope that their little brother could finally step out of Jacques' shadow and be free. With that in mind, she may as well relay the message. General Ironwood, I would like to discuss. Winter was suddenly interrupted. A flash of orange light appeared in the middle of the office. A yellow beam was then shot towards the pair, with Winter pushing Ironwood out of the way and swiftly creating a glyph as a makeshift shield. Though the glyph shattered, it did soften most of the blow even if Winter ended up getting blasted out of the rear window. Ironwood looked stunned to see the orange light vanish and something new and dangerous appeared in his office. It was clearly a robot, one that bore a similar resemblance to Omega, only it was completely black and had no legs as it appeared to hover in the air via a rudder and thrusters along its back and side. It also had long robotic arms that were equipped with shield-like gauntlets with claw-like blades at the edges, and energy cannons were also mounted, one each gauntlet. It also had a single green optic on its face as it shifted its gaze towards Ironwood, who quickly drew his pistol and opened fire. Only for the machine to project a shield-like barrier around itself and block the shots. Though the general didn't know it, this was one of Eggman's older creations, now fully rebuilt. This was the E-101 Beta Mk2. Now that was a superb showing. Penny declared as she and her group were still in her father's laboratory. I'll say, they'll be talking about this for weeks, Pietro said with a chuckle. Only it won't be about Jacques, that's for sure. Tails giggled. While I admit that was entertaining to watch, Seal began. I fear this may hinder Weiss' attempts to further infiltrate the SDC and discover the connection to Eggman. A valid concern, but I wouldn't worry, Blaze assured. Weiss is smart enough to know all that, so I doubt she would have made such a move if she didn't have a plan already in place. Right on the money, Blaze. Tails pulled out his Miles Electric and showed all the data he just received. This is a copy of everything she could access from the SDC servers and mainframe, all with her dad's credentials. I haven't deciphered it all yet, but this should give us all the info we need. Seal blinked in surprise while Penny just smiled. I must applaud Weiss for her thoroughness. I'll be certain to tell her that directly when I see. Suddenly, to everyone's shock and horror, a bright orange portal opened directly under Penny, causing the android girl to fall in as she was more than startled herself. And before she even had the chance to fly back up, the portal closed. In the blink of an eye, Penny was gone. Penny! Pietro exclaimed in terror. What in the world was that? Blaze exclaimed. Some kind of localized wormhole. Tails guessed. Before he could even make a theory on what just happened, a similar orange light appeared behind the group as something else had entered the laboratory. It was a large, bulky, somewhat humanoid green-colored robot with a trash-can-like head. It also had a yellow and red color scheme to it as well, with buggy red robotic eyes, massive and bulky arms with black metal fists. It appeared to have no legs as its lower body was kept hovering by a pair of rear thrusters on its back. An intruder. Seal and Blaze were the first to have their weapons drawn and stood with Tails protectively in front of Pietro. It appears to be one of Eggman's robots, Blaze observed. However, Tails narrowed his eyes in confusion as he actually recognized this robot. Wait, is that? This was the same type of robot that had once kidnapped Amy when Eggman tried to take control of Chaos. This was E-100 Alpha. But it also appeared to be modified as its sides opened, and a pair of Gatling-like guns appeared. Get down! Tails exclaimed as he picked up Pietro and flew away to avoid the gunfire that tore his chair apart, while Blaze and Seal scattered to avoid the gunfire. Cinder found herself awoken from her slumber by the muffled sounds of gunfire and explosions from outside. The 20 AK units that had her surrounded appeared to have their own guns drawn as they pointed them towards the door, as if they were expecting a fight. The woman was still magnetically sealed to the table via her cybernetic implants and unable to move save for craning her head a bit. She could only blink in confusion, silently wondering what was happening out there. Suddenly, an orange portal appeared in between her and the AK units. And before the robots could turn around and react, two metal arrows were shot out from the portal and pierced through each and every one of the robots' heads. They moved at defying angles and speeds that was impossible for any normal arrow, unless it was somehow controlled by a semblance. Once the last of the robots fell down, the arrows circled around before coming back to the portal, where they were caught by Brand Thornmane, who stepped out with a specialized bow weapon in hand, one that looked like it could also separate into a pair of daggers. Who would have thought I'd be coming back to this place so soon? Brand questioned rhetorically as, on the opposite side of the portal, facing Cinder directly, Hanlon Fifestone emerged with an Aerofell sphere in his hands. Who are you? Cinder questioned. I'm your new best friend. Here to give you a get-out-of-jail-free card, Hanlon said as he held his hand towards her face. Cinder felt all her strength fade away as her raw emotions, specifically her anger, hatred, and aggression, were forcibly extracted via Hanlon's semblance and confined within the Aerofell orb as Cinder fell unconscious. Your hate will definitely prove useful, as will you personally. Cinder fall. Bran looked at her ambitiously. You're about to become our greatest weapon. Freya slept peacefully within her room, where the only sounds that stirred were the machines attached to her that monitored her vitals. Though her mind was fading in and out at times, she knew deep down, even as she slept, that her time was nearing its end. She had a feeling that she would take her last breath soon. And yet, she didn't seem the least bit frightened by that. It was almost welcoming, like she could finally rest. though her rest was disturbed as a bright orange light appeared at the side of her bed, stirring her awake. "Wah, what is? SSHH, a voice soothed as the second she opened her eyes, she saw swirls that caused her grow tired once more. "It's nothing you need to fear. This is merely a dream. Rest now." As the soothing voice spoke, Freya felt herself falling back to her peaceful slumber once more. "My precious winter maiden," Starline said with a sinister grin. Spiral Hill. RWBY swung Caliburn Mimic's way, though he was quick to dodge all the relentless slices before he caught her arms with his own as he shifted to take Kiro's form, though his eyes still remained his own. "Hey, what happened to that cool side you had?" Mimic sneered in Kiro's voice before elbowing her in the face to disorient her before tripping her over his own feet, though RWBY recovered quickly enough as she sped to a nearby wall and launched herself from it at Mimic Kiro, who limboed under her strike as she passed over him. He turned back to normal as he used his tentacles to grab her by her legs as she passed over him to throw her to ground. "You had some decent moves with that thing, but with that new sword you got, you're way more predictable." Mimic taunted as he assumed Kiro's form again. "Rely too much on one weapon, and you're helpless without it." "RWBY." Yang tried to help her, only for Neo to suddenly appear in front of her with a pink flash and lunge the blade from her parasol at her, which grazed Yang's face before she threw a retaliatory punch, which Neo shielded herself with the open parasol and then quickly closed it to spin her umbrella and hook Yang's arm before pulling her in to kick her in the face and knock her back before Neo leaned against the opposing wall on the street with a condescending smile. Yang growled in anger as she saw her smirk, but tried to rein herself in, only for that to completely shatter as she saw Neo use her own semblance to take the form of Kiro, with Neo's own smirk clear on his face. That really caused her to grow angry as she pounded the ground with her fists before lunging at Neo again, punching the illusion of her uncle, which shattered like glass from impact, while Neo, in her real form, appeared at her side to repeatedly slash her across her body and knock her down. Yang. RWBY attempted to speed forward and help her, only for Mimi, still in Kiro's form, to grab her by her hooded cape and pulled her in while quickly wrapping the cape around her body, forcing her to drop Caliburn while also binding her. Mimic held RWBY close as he brandished his knife to her face. "First the Schnee heiress, now you. What is it about family drama that just makes this so much fun?" Mimic teased as his knife charged with electricity, causing RWBY to whimper. She knew that this was Mimic, not her uncle, and yet he looked and sounded just like Kiro. In some of his comments, his critiques on her new fighting style hit home for her as Kiro was the one who primarily trained her on how to use Crescent Rose in the first place. She began to hyperventilate as she felt herself panicking, which Mimic noticed right away. "Ah, what's the matter little RWBY? Run out of tricks. Come on, don't you want to say hi to your old man?" As she panicked, her anger also began to draw itself out, anger at Mimic's mention of family. Anger towards Mimic who was using Kiro's voice and face to taunt her. Anger towards Kiro himself for keeping his secrets, siding with Ozpin over everything, and being angry at her friends. Anger towards Yang for pushing him away and refusing to reconcile with him. Anger towards Raven for abandoning Yang 3 times over. Anger towards her own mother for leaving and never coming back. Anger towards herself for not being good enough and holding Sonic back. But all that anger, she directed it towards the murderer in front of her. The one who betrayed his own team to save his own skin. "I want you off." RWBY threw the strongest kick she could manage, striking Mimic Kiro in the jaw that he was forced to let her go and turned back to normal when sent flying up from the force of her kick. Yang, Neo, and especially Mimic were surprised at the force of RWBY's strike as Mimic fell back down. The hell was that? He tried to recover as he took the form of Rouge and halt his fall with the wings this form granted him, only for RWBY to dash up the side of one building and leap to reach him in the air, where she spun her right foot around and kicked him in the face, sending Mimic hurtling and crashing to the ground. "We've learned some new tricks since we last met, Mimic," RWBY shouted as she landed, glancing towards Yang in the process. "We're not the same helpless kids we were before." She sped at Mimic again, who instinctively took the bulkier form of Hazel to brace himself for RWBY's kick that sent him crashing into the building. Yang, while still surprised over her sister's recovery and counterattack on Mimic, also caught the glance RWBY threw her way, as well as the message in her words. "That's right. Things have changed since Beacon. They've grown stronger, learned some new tricks. All this time, she's been stewing in her anger over Kiro, Raven, and the rest of their family. She can't stay in that anger anymore. RWBY needed her to be strong right now. Not sloppy like how she used to be. Wait, sloppy from being angry. The blonde, once again, pounded the ground with explosive force to push Neo back and give herself some room to stand before she spoke to the mute. Kiro killed somebody you know. Yang asked, which caused Neo to glare at her. Who was it? Couldn't have been Cinder, she wasn't the friendly type. She felt a slash across her back, courtesy of the real Neo as the one in front of her disappeared, revealing itself to be an illusion. But to Neo's surprise, Yang stood her ground and didn't even budge an inch. Though the mute did notice Yang's hair glowing slightly. Not much of a talker, huh? So your friend probably talked more for the both of you. Neo dashed around Yang to slash at her legs with her blade and threw the parasol at her like a blunt weapon, but Yang still stood her ground, not even throwing a punch back. That brings someone to mind, Roman Torchwick. That guy definitely didn't know when to shut up. Neo gritted her teeth as she leapt over Yang, slashed at her head and then appeared at her left side to slash again, but Yang still didn't move. If anything, her hair only seemed to be glowing brighter with each slash. So Kiro killed him. Good. Neo's eyes widened at that. He was a murderer. He tried to help Eggman in destroying Beacon and endanger a whole lot of innocent people. One less psycho to worry about if you ask me. Neo rushed Yang again, slashing her across her front. You got no right to seek revenge when you're honestly no different. How many innocent people have you killed? A slash to her neck area. Now you're siding with even more dangerous people, and you act like the victim. Get off your damn high horse. She lunged her blade at Yang's leg, but the blonde still didn't move. Honestly, the fact that Yang wasn't even trying to block it all only made Neo's blood boil even more. What did you even see in him? Yang said as a smirk appeared across his face. A smirk that caused Neo to lunge at her again, slashing rapidly all over Yang's body, not even noticing that with each strike, a glowing golden aura formed around Yang's whole form. Neo stopped for a brief moment, taking a moment to catch her breath as she was looking pretty tired. All her adrenaline was pumping to max, being fueled by anger alone as this blonde bimbo had the nerve to insult her late Roman. The way she was talking and smirking, she probably came from a nice loving family. She knew nothing of the life she had. The abuse her birth parents put her through. Roman saved her. He was her hero. Not like all those fake heroes huntsmen pretend to be. She had no right to call her out or morally lecture her like this. Yang smiled as she saw the anger in Neo's eyes. Honestly, if Kiro hadn't killed Torchwick, I certainly would have. I'd be doing the world a huge favor. 'Cause you know what? It's a much friendlier and happy place without a scummy, creepy, pathetic loser like him. Neo's eyes widened with fury as she lunged at Yang with all her strength, throwing out her blade, hoping to pierce through her chest where her heart would be. But as she lunged, Yang clenched her fists as her hair was set on fire, brightly so that it lit up the entire alleyway. And a bright yellow aura encompassed her whole body, one that resembled flames of their own. And the second the blade of her parasol hit this barrier, it bent and snapped in half. Neo gasped in audible shock as she saw the blade of her precious weapon break. That moment of shock was enough for Yang to seize her by her throat with one hand, and grab her arm with the other as she lifted her up. Her flaming aura vanished around her as the fire around her hair died down, though it still glowed somewhat. Gotcha. Yang smirked before slamming Neo down onto the ground, the force causing her to lose her grip on her parasol and made sure to keep a firm grip onto her. Might wanna watch that temper of yours. Makes you sloppy. She didn't even give Neo a chance to use her semblance or any of her other fancy tricks as she began to relentlessly pound Neo in her face. Though she lowered the amount of accumulated energy she was using via her semblance, she made sure Ember Silicia fired into Neo's face until her pink aura appeared and flickered out. Then with one final yell, Yang thrusted her fist into Neo's face and completely shattered Neo's aura and pounded her into the ground with enough force that it made a small crater. The mute then fell over unconscious, while Yang dusted her hands off with a satisfied smile. Though she did feel a bit dirty insulting a dead person like that, it might have been the best way to catch a trickster like Neo off her guard. Meanwhile, RWBY was now facing Mimic in a narrow bathroom, and the girl didn't even give the purple-skinned octopus a chance to shapeshift as she sped to him and threw her foot out to strike him in the gut and knock him to the wall. RWBY then bounced up to the ceiling and shot herself down at Mimic, who still tried to protect himself by assuming Hazel's form, though RWBY's downward kick did strike and knock him to the floor. And while he was down, RWBY spun around to kick him in the jaw and send him skidding across the floor. I might not have crescent rows anymore, but I've always been quick on my feet, she told herself before dashing at Mimic again, sliding across the ground to stick her foot out and kick him in the face to send him spiraling upwards as she dashed past him. So, move fast. Don't give him a chance to play his games. She sped with a jump and used her whole body to bask into Mimic and knock him into the ceiling. She sped downward at an angle so that her feet would land on a wall, and before she jumped from it and used the force and speed of her semblance to dash into Mimic again, and with each time she struck him, the more her body began to appear in the form of a red blur. Come on, faster. She dashed across the room, striking Mimic once more. Faster. She shot from the ceiling to strike him to the ground and then put her hands on the ground to deliver a double kick to Mimic before he had the chance to even fall. Use your feet. Run fast and kick hard. From an outside perspective, RWBY became a blur of red as her whole body vanished in a cluster of red petals, one that came together and solidified itself like a single mass. Be like the wind. Be like Sonic. Mimic smacked against the ground so hard that his body flopped into the air, and from that angle, he saw RWBY hanging over him with a serious and dangerous look in his eyes. What is this? She's not like the brat she was before. What the hell is she? He exclaimed mentally in a panic. She lifted her right leg up high and gave a mighty yell as she brought it down with all the force she could muster and kicked him in the back of the head to smash him into the ground, so much so that he bounced up and ended up smack into the ceiling before falling back down. When he landed, Mimic was barely conscious as he appeared heavily bruised. His face was severely swollen, even as he spat out blood. His eyes shifted up to the menacing-looking RWBY standing over him. Look at you, he coughed. That was very ruthless, not really heroic of you, huh? He tried to give a taunting smirk. Shut up, RWBY said before she kicked him across the face to knock him out. I'm tired of listening to you. RWBY. Looking towards the hole that was made before, the one that led outside, the girl saw Yang looking at her with a concerned expression. Yang, she blinked as the dark look she previously had vanished and she felt her own senses clear up somewhat. Wait, are you Yang? She looked ready to defend herself. I'm me. Neo's knocked out. She gestured for RWBY to step outside, which she cautiously did as she looked to see Neapolitan was indeed knocked unconscious, causing RWBY to breathe in relief. Hey, you took down Mimic all by yourself. Not bad. She lightly punched her sister in the arm congratulatory. RWBY smiled briefly before she got serious again as she went to pick up Caliburn. We're not done yet, though. You're right about that. A blast of water had struck RWBY while her guard was down and knocked her across the street, all courtesy of Vermilion as he just entered the street. Salem's still got big plans for you, little Rose. That caused Yang to glare as she turned to the masked man and leapt at him with her fists hung out, but Vermilion caught her fist with little effort. When she tried to punch him with her free hand, he caught that as well. You're Raven Bronwyn's daughter, aren't you? Vermilion inquired as Yang tried to wrench her hands free. His grip was so tight that she couldn't even fire Ember Celica. I saw you handle that girl with your semblance. So, you can absorb the damage your opponent inflicts on you and use it as both a shield to protect yourself and to further increase your attack power. That's an impressive weapon. Think I'll take it. What? Yang suddenly felt all her strength being sapped away as her own yellow aura manifested itself around her, which turned red at her hands. She could feel her own aura being tugged away from her body the longer he held her as his own red aura shined. Yang. RWBY dashed at Vermilion and slashed at his arms with Caliburn while also spinning on the handle of her sword to kick him in the head and knock him away from her sister. Are you okay? She helped her sister. Give me a second. Yang was on her knees as her hair lit on fire and she activated her own semblance. Her aura glowed again as she felt her energy return, allowing her to stand up fully, much to RWBY's amazement and relief. What the hell is with that guy? It felt like he was ripping away my aura. Oh, that's a handy little trick. Vermilion commented as he stood up straight himself. You used your gathered energy to strengthen your aura and help replenish it. Very impressive. You're a Bronwyn all right. Why does he sound so proud of that? Ruby muttered. Who the hell are you? Yang questioned. You can call me Vermilion. He introduced himself. You handled yourself well against a pair of punks and some tricksters. His own red aura began to glow around himself in the same manner Yang's hair would glow when she activated her semblance. Let's see how well you fare against someone who specializes in killing huntsmen. Knuckles and Hazel roared as they pounded their fists against one another, with Hazel giving way first before Knuckles advanced on him with multiple rapid punches, which Hazel blocked by crossing his arms. Said arms were coated with fire and lightning from the dust inside of him before he swung outward to create a wave of flames and electricity to push back Knuckles, allowing for Hazel to grab him, and then haul him over to slam him into the ground. Only for Knuckles to drive his fists into the ground and prevent Hazel from pulling him up to slam him again. Knuckles pulled his feet back as he positioned himself to haul a piece of the ground up from underneath Hazel before throwing both up into the air. Hazel landed on his feet and caught the large chunk of the ground, only for it to shatter as Knuckles shot through it with a punch and scored another across the shocked Hazel's face. Amy ran straight towards Earl Shen as he fired off more third eye beams from his forehead at her, but she quickly spun the Pico around herself while dashing forward like a top to bat away the beams before closing the gap. She brought her hammer to Earl Shen, who blocked it with the pole of his staff, which he used to swipe down at her with both the rear end using wind dust to enhance its swing and speed power, while the lightning from the tip lit up. Rather than dodge or block, however, Amy swung the mallet of her hammer to meet the lightning-charged blade in the middle while also spinning herself around on the pole of her own hammer like a spindish and struck Earl in the side to knock him off balance before she followed through with a swing of her mighty hammer onto his side, pounding him into the ground. Sonic chuckled as he avoided a lunge from Tyrion's stinger. Up. Missed me. He swerved easily to avoid the slashes of Tyrion's arm blades as well. Too slow. A split of his legs allowed Sonic to duck under another tail swipe before Sonic dashed at Tyrion's arms and legs, the scorpion faunus positioning himself on all fours, working to his own disadvantage now as he was knocked off balance, allowing for Sonic to come in with a spindish into Tyrion's side and send him tumbling across the street, though he did quickly recover. You who would threaten our queen. Tyrion snarled at the smirking blue hedgehog. He remembered how concerned Salem was at the very mention of Sonic. How he erased a plan year in the making in the span of a single night, setting her back by years. How dare you stand against her? How dare you think you can actually defeat her? You think you can destroy destruction incarnate? Sonic then sped directly in front of Tyrion and bopped him on the nose with his finger. Yep. That one little word, yep, like he can so casually defeat Salem as if she were just a minor nuisance. He wanted to believe that it wasn't true, that Eggman was merely exaggerating with how dangerous Sonic could be to her. No, it was the power of the Chaos Emeralds that wiped away the Grim in Vale. Without them, Sonic was nothing. Just a cocky child with a fancy speed semblance. He paled in comparison to his goddess. And he will deliver his pelt to her feet. Tyrion lunged his tail at Sonic, who not only swerved to avoid the sting, but even caught it, much to Tyrion's own shock. Sonic's grin only grew as he kicked his feet, giving the message of what his next move was going to be. Don't you dare. Before Tyrion could finish, Sonic sped away, carrying Tyrion by his tail and moved away from the battlefield, zooming into the streets as he dragged Tyrion along the ground before swerving and running into a narrower alleyway. Heads up, Sonic warned playfully as he zoomed into the narrow alley, jumping and leaping from the ground to all the walls as he ran, avoiding all the open doors, boxes, trash cans, and everything that was a potential running hazard. And as he ran and jumped, Tyrion got flung around like a ragdoll, screaming the entire way as he felt his face and body getting smashed across not just the walls and ground, but even all the wayward hazards that Sonic avoided. Every trash can, every box, every open door, everything slammed into Tyrion, not even giving him the chance to scream and process it all as Sonic continued to drag him along before he emerged from the alleyway, circled around the street and came back to the square where Knuckles and Amy were still fighting their respective opponents. Tyrion's purple aura flashed and looked on the verge of shattering as Sonic slowed his pace and came to a stop, all while holding Tyrion's tail. Hey, you're supposed to be Salem's top dog. She must really be desperate to get a loser like you on her side. He growled as he glanced up towards the smirking blue rodent. I mean seriously, he chuckled. You're actually calling her a goddess. I've tangled with gods before, and she doesn't seem to match. If anything, I call her half-baked Dark Lord wannabe who's got nothing better to do with her time. Shut up. Tyrion forced himself up as he slashed at Sonic, but the blue hedgehog swerved past Tyrion, still holding onto his tail, and tripped him up in the process. I mean, if she really was so powerful, why not come to smite me herself? Sonic continued. Or even smite Ozpin and the rest of Remnant. He said as Tyrion growled again and tried to attack him, but Sonic leapt over him, still carrying Tyrion's tail, leading him to flip and slam on the ground back first. She can't, 'cause she's scared. Sonic made sure Tyrion saw his taunting grin. Salem the Destroyer. More like Salem the Wuss. Salem the Coward. Salem the Scaredy Cat. He leaned in as close as he did to Tyrion's face, the maniac looking ready to have a stroke from anger and rage alone. Salem, the false goddess. Tyrion's pupils shrunk as he lost any and all self-control. With a yell, he pulled back both arm blades and slashed upwards. Only for Sonic to step aside and hold out Tyrion's own tail, which was sliced off in the attack. The murderous psychopath was in shock at what he just did for a few seconds, before the sensation of agony shot up his tail area and into his spine, causing him to scream in agony. The scream caught the attention of Hazel and Earl Shen, surprising them both, especially Hazel with how Tyrion just lost his tail. This moment left them both open as Knuckles brought both his fists down onto Hazel's head to smash him into the ground, his own aura flashing and nearly breaking, while Amy pulled Earl Shen into a tornado hammer attack before finishing him off with an upward swing to his face, causing his pale white aura to form before it nearly broke as he was flung upward again and slammed hard onto the ground. Tyrion's scream was cut off as Sonic delivered another spin dash to send the scorpion Faunus colliding into his comrades, knocking them against a nearby wall. You too good? Sonic asked as he joined his friends. Yep, just finished up. Knuckles nodded as he looked satisfied at the pile of beaten adversaries. They were pretty tough though. Stronger than Cinder and her team, certainly. But nothing we couldn't handle, right? Sonic said with confidence. A little overkill though, cutting that guy's tail off, don't ya think, Sonic? Amy winced as Sonic looked back to the severed stinger that was once a part of Tyrion. Yeah, seems like something Shadow would do, Sonic admitted. But, better than letting him use it to poison somebody else later on. Come on, we need to find Yang and RWBY before Metal Sonic, Knuckles began, only for Metal to appear as he dashed at Knuckles and slammed into him, sending him crashing across the ground. Amy acted quickly as she swung the Pico Pico at him, but Metal blocked it with a swing from Crescent Edge, the pink hedgehog gasping at the familiar-looking scythe. Metal used this to slice his other blade at her, only for Sonic to grab her and dash away closer to the recovering Knuckles. Hey Metal, ready for round 2? Sonic looked eager for a fight. But that look turned into one of confusion as Metal actually pointed straight upwards, prompting Sonic, Amy, and Knuckles to do so. Only for all three to gasp as they saw a Nevermore come in to dive-bomb them, the three quickly scattering to avoid the head strike of the flying Grim before it returned to the skies. What the? Sonic questioned as he looked upwards to see at least 20 more Nevermore in the sky. And they weren't the only ones. A series of howls and growls drew them to the direction Metal Sonic came in, past all the buildings to see large group of Grim, all consisting of Beowulfs, Ursai, Barangel, and Sabers all emerge from the around and on top of the buildings. These were among a faction of the hundreds of other Grim that were drawn to Spiral Hill, with several climbing the hill itself or rushing up the pathway towards the village. Did Metal just? Amy stuttered. Lure Grim here, Knuckles exclaimed. But none were more shocked than Sonic, it seemed. He looked towards Metal, who hovered above all the growing numbers of ground-based Grim and could practically see the smirk on his face. I thought he'd get caught up in the middle of a Grim swarm. But he actually lured them all here. Sonic questioned internally. And that's way more than where I left. Did he go out to lure in all the Grim from the area? A flash in Metal's blood-red optics all but confirmed it. Even as a Nevermore descended straight for him, Metal quickly sliced Crescent Edge upwards to decapitate the Nevermore as its corpse fell past them. He can't control them, but he did lead them here. Sonic realized. Guys, I'm sorry. I didn't. Don't apologize, Sonic. Amy held her Pico Pico tightly. Metal did this, not you. For now, let's just get rid of these things. Knuckles drew Galatine again. Sonic put his internal blame away as he decided to focus on the problem at hand. You're right. One Beowulf at the head of the line of Grim held before it, and those up front charged towards the trio. But before they could charge back, a long tail, one that glowed pink, shot outwards like a laser sword to cut through and decapitate or cut in half that whole line of Grim. What followed next was a series of gunshots that finished off those that survived. Woo, now this I can get used to, Tangle said as she appeared on the scene, still charged up with Rosa's power. Tangle, Sonic, Knuckles, and Amy exclaimed. And friends, Neptune said seriously as he stepped onto the scene alongside his teammates, all of whom had their weapons at the ready. And it wasn't just them, most of Spiral Hill Village had arrived on the scene, with most of them all being adults that held whatever they could use as makeshift weapons, such as shovels, hatchets, baseball bats, crowbars, trash can lids for shields, or even rocks to throw, whatever was handy. Rosa separated from Tangle as she reverted back to normal before the Wisp spoke. I found everyone in Spiral Hill. All the kids are still in the community center for their own protection, but the adults wanted to help fight. This is our home. And as awesome as you are, Sonic, we can't always rely on you. Tangle said as she took a combative stance with her tail at the ready. Right here and now, we're going to fight back with what we got. And we're here to back you up, too. Neptune said as he cocked try hard. This is our job, after all. Right, guys. Right. Sage held his sword. Absolutely. Scarlet crossed his sword and pistol together. Yeah. Nolan held his cattle prod. Sonic looked to all this in surprise and awe before sharing glances with his friends, Amy and Knuckles, who nodded with smiles of their own. Okay. Sonic sped to Tangle's side. But nobody handles these guys alone. Keep your distance and take them on in groups of 3 or more. You, me, Knuckles, and Amy will handle the bulk of these guys. Sounds like a plan. The lemur smirked. Rosa, find Ruby and Yang. Tell them what's going on. Sonic told the Wisp. You got it. The pink wisp flew back towards the town. Sonic then turned to the growling and roaring Grim. Come on, let's go. He was the first to charge forward with Tangle, Amy, and Knuckles right beside him, while Team SSNN formed a line to hold the defenses alongside the villagers of Spiral Hill. The Grim roared before charging in as well. However, Metal Sonic did not join the fray. Instead, he flew higher, avoiding the Nevermores that flew down closer and reached a point where he could see all of Spiral Hill below him. Once he reached that height, Metal's optics zoomed in on the trace of hyper-go-on energy that Wisp was giving off and followed her trail in a certain direction, one that led to Ruby Rose, along with Yang Xiaolong as they were in a battle against Vermilion. With what he needed, Metal flew back towards the village. Mantle. The people in the streets all ran away screaming as the Egg Walker advanced on the happy huntresses, firing a volley of missiles and bullets their way, forcing the 4 young women to scatter as explosions and bullets tore up the street. Silver then flew straight for it and threw out Galahad in its electrical mode with the intent of tearing its legs off, but the mech fired a series of missiles Silver's way, forcing him to shield himself with his psychokinesis and dropped his shield in the process. Though Silver was able to shield himself, the explosive force did push him back somewhat. Get it? While its attention is focused on me. Silver called to the huntresses. You heard the man. Robin called to her teammates as they moved directly under the Egg Walker. Aim for the joints. She fired her crossbow at the joint of the right front leg while Joanna and May did the same for the left front leg and rear left leg respectively. Fiona was quick to grab Silver's shield weapon as well before she also fired her crossbow into the joint of the rear right leg. The Egg Walker began to lose control of its legs, looking ready to slip and fall. But it wasn't done yet. The E-10,000R unit plugged into it forced it to jump straight in the air with the intent of falling back down to squash the huntresses. Fortunately, Fiona was able to absorb her teammates into her pocket dimension via her semblance and ran out of the way as quickly as she could before it could smash and leave a devastating impact on the ground. An impact that never came as Silver caught the whole mech with his psychokinesis. I don't think so. Silver. Fiona threw Galahad in his direction, and he used the magnetic attachment on his gauntlet to draw it back to his person once it was close enough. Thanks. He told Fiona as she released her teammates from her pocket dimension. I'll handle the rest. He launched his shield in its electric setting at the underbelly of the egg walker while he continued to hold it up. This led to an electric current to surge throughout the mech, specifically the cockpit area, as the surge of electricity traveled through the hookups and into the E10000R unit, leading it to short circuit before its head exploded. Once he saw the machine power down, Silver pulled back his shield and set the remains of the egg walker back down, allowing him to see the destroyed robot in the cockpit. "This thing isn't getting back up," he told the happy huntresses as they walked closer to inspect the device. "Where did this thing even come from?" May questioned as she looked towards her leader, who narrowed her eyes in suspicion. "Robin. Something's not right, that was way too easy." The hallway of the Atlas base was in chaos as several armed soldiers tried to form a perimeter, only for they and the Ace Ops to fail to even contain the speedy robot that was Mechasonic Mk3. Harriet attempted to catch it, but it proved to be as quick as her as it avoided all her rapid punches and aimed its hands at her stomach, revealing a series of guns for its fingertips as it opened fire at her abdomen, disorienting her long enough to unleash a spin dash and send her into the wall. A boomerang was thrown in the robot's direction, which Mechasonic Mk3 avoided with little issue, courtesy of Marrow, though this did allow for Clover a chance to snag its leg with Kingfisher before he flung it over himself. Though it did spin itself like a spindish to untangle itself, Mechasonic Mk3 was caught in the air by Vine's aura hands. "Shoot it while I hold it down," he stated. "You heard the man," Elm told the surrounding soldiers. "Fire at will." She aimed Timber in its rocket form as all the soldiers readied their guns. But before they had a chance to attack, Mechasonic Mk3 curled itself up and performed a spindish that gave enough force to break out of Vine's aura hands and went straight for Elm before she could even fire, striking her in the head and smashing her to the ground. Mechasonic Mk3 then fired its gun hands at the soldiers, who backed away as they tried to return fire themselves. "How'd you lose that?" Harriet exclaimed to Vine as she, Clover, and Marrow caught up. "It moved so fast that it vibrated with enough force to escape," Vine commented. "Although, it's not as fast as Sonic, or even that Metal Sonic machine that Eggman uses." "So, it's a prototype?" Marrow questioned. "But why send a prototype alone to attack us?" "We'll worry about that, later," Clover told him. "Let's just stop it first. If it's not as fast as Sonic, I'll catch it," Harriet said. "I got a plan. Marrow, you can use your semblance to catch multiple targets in a specific distance, right?" "Yeah," he confirmed with a raised eyebrow. "I'll catch that piece of junk, lure it further down the hall, and you freeze us both," Harriet said. "Once we're frozen, shoot it." "But you could get caught in that too," Marrow stated. "I can take it," Harriet replied before looking to her leader. "Clover, I can do this." Deciding to trust in his teammate, Clover nodded. "Okay, do it." With that, Harriet took a stance akin to a professional sprinter as her body surged with electricity. She spotted Mechasonic Mk3 making quick work of the soldiers as her eyes lit up and then dashed right for the robot. Mechasonic Mk3 noticed it too late as Harriet decked it across the face, sending the robot tumbling across the ground. "Hey, come and get me, you pile of scrap metal," Harriet called out, prompting Mechasonic Mk3 to chase after her further down the hall. Harriet ran up and down the walls and ceiling like a spiral as Mechasonic Mk3 flew in a straight line and tried to shoot her with its finger guns, but missed nearly all of them. Harriet then pounced from the wall and zoomed straight at Mechasonic Mk3 and decked it across the face. Marrow ran to a spot where he felt he had a good enough view of both Harriet and the robot, and the ace operative was doing her best to keep the machine in the same area. This gave Marrow the open he needed. "Stay." He snapped his fingers and pointed forward. With that, both Harriet and Mechasonic Mk3 were frozen in place as they dashed to collide with each other, both stuck in that position. "Shoot now while I got them." "Do it," Clover told Elm and his men, all of whom looked conflicted at first, before they hardened themselves and opened fire. A series of energy shots as well as rockets from Elm's timber were fired and exploded, tearing up that section of the hallway as Marrow let go of his semblance. The rest of the Ace Ops and the soldiers ran through the smoke as it cleared, revealing Harriet on the ground, her aura flashing slightly, while Mechasonic Mk3 was now in pieces. Its limbs twisted and ripped from its non-existent chest unit, while its head piece was still somewhat intact, and its optics lost their light. "I'm okay," Harriet said as the soldiers helped her up. That was reckless, Harriet. Clover lightly scolded. But a good plan. Just don't be so eager to throw your life away. With all due respect, sir. That's the job, Harriet said as she took a second to catch her breath. No, it's not. Clover shook his head. Risking your life and throwing your life away are two completely different things. His look softened. I don't want to lose such a valued soldier. I understand if the situation called for it, but try to be more cautious. Harriet was surprised by Clover's comment and touched by his genuine care. Yes, sir, she accepted with humility. General Ironwood. The two soldiers guarding Ironwood's office came storming in, looking in shock to see Ironwood rolling and dodging the lasers shoot at him by the E-101 Beta Mk2. He rolled along the ground before drawing his pistol and opening fire, though the robot raised its right arm as a shield to block the bullet. Shoot while it's focused on me, he called to his men. Immediately, the two soldiers opened fire with their guns at the seemingly exposed Beta. Only for an orb-like shield to activate and protect itself from the gunfire, much to the shock of the soldiers and Ironwood's frustration. Under the protection of its shield, Beta brought its hands together as a yellow ball of energy began to form in between them. Ironwood then saw Beta's single optic shift its gaze towards his two soldiers. Pull back, now! Ironwood shouted as Beta dropped its shield and threw the energy ball at the soldiers. They tried to run away, only for the ball to explode behind them and send them flying out of the office. With its shield down, the general had jumped up and wrapped his arm around the machine's neck, or at least the area where it's supposed to be. It tried to shake him off, but he held firm. Bet you can't use that shield of yours again right away. Ironwood put his gun to Beta's head and fired, which did manage to break off pieces of its armor. Though Beta was still functional enough that it flew itself back towards the wall of his office to slam Ironwood into it, which did have him lose his gun, but Ironwood still held on. Even after being slammed in a second and third time, Ironwood refused to let go. You won't shake me that easily. Ironwood grunted between slams as he reached for the opening he made with his gun and tried to tear out its circuitry. Beta's shield then reactivated, which managed to finally push Ironwood off and send him to the floor. He looked up to see Beta already charging its energy ball attack and was prepared to throw it at him. Only for a black glyph to appear in front of Ironwood and resend the energy ball back at Beta, destroying its shields in the process as Ironwood braced himself from the resulting shockwave. The smoke cleared as Ironwood looked out the broken window to see Winter, standing on a white Nevermore summon, with her own sword pointing forward. You might want to find cover, sir. Winter warned over the comms. The white Nevermore gave a white caw as Ironwood used that as his signal to bolt out the exit and roll down the stairs before the white Nevermore flung its wings to send a hail of white feathers into the office, tearing apart much of it. And while Beta tried to shield itself with its arms, the white feathers also tore through the joints and severed both arms completely. Winter then shot herself forward on a series of glyphs, blasting herself into the office through the window with her blade drawn and slice as she passed by Beta, landing dramatically on her foot and knee with her sword hung outward. Beta's head then rolled off its body as its remains fell to the ground. Winter stood up with a look of relief, though she spotted the bodies of the soldiers just outside the main doors as Ironwood stepped back up. Her look of mourning lasted for a second before she stood straight. Control room secure, General. Thank you, Winter. Ironwood put a hand on her shoulder before looking to the bodies of his men. They did their duty. But it's all right to mourn them, he said with a sad look in his eyes, causing Winter's stoic face to fade away as she took a second to mourn for her comrades. I'm sorry, sir, Winter said. I'll put the base on alert. That machine was clearly Eggman's. We should be ready. Hold on a second, Ironwood interrupted. Yes, this was of Eggman's design. He walked over to Beta's head and lightly kicked it. But the way it was used, assignations aren't Eggman's forte. Not without causing a bigger scene, like attacking all of Atlas. Salem, perhaps, Winter assumed. Maybe, but why would? Ironwood's eyes widened as the mention of Salem brought something else to mind. There would only be one other target of interest for her in this base. Where is Freya? Back in Pietro's lab, Tails had managed to find cover for him and Pietro while Blaze and Seal engaged Alpha directly. With Cricket drawn and her semblance activated, Seal flailed a light whip in the robot's direction, striking it across its hull and keeping it focused on her while Blaze came down from above, flipping her foot to send a wave of fire over Alpha's head while lunging Lavation forward. Only for the robot's hand to reach for the flames and catch Blaze's sword by the blade, much to her surprise before it spun around rapidly and flung Blaze into Seal, knocking them both down before it fired its Gatling guns, prompting the two to run and avoid the fire. "What is this thing?" Pietro exclaimed. "Alpha, it's one of Eggman's older robots." Tails answered. "But Amy destroyed this thing a long time ago. Somebody clearly rebuilt it though," Pietro observed. "It also seems to have a sturdy frame, able to endure Seal and Blaze's attacks like that. Because its core on the inside is more vulnerable," Tails said as he stood up and had Hurricane Gamma drawn with its energy blades. "Sorry about the mess we're going to make, Professor. My lab can always be rebuilt. Do what you need to do," he told the young fox, who quickly flew with his dual fox tails and swung one of his energy blades to slice off the Gatling gun on the right. This drew Alpha's attention to him as it threw a punch at Tails and sent him crashing into a nearby wall. "Blaze! Seal!" Tails shouted as he recovered quickly. "Hit it from all sides. If it takes too much damage, it'll overload and expose its core. That's how Amy was able to defeat it the first time, anyway. Overwhelm it through physical force and expose its power core." "Understood." Blaze nodded as she attacked first, focusing her flames in her sword as she went at its back and slashed off the remaining Gatling gun before slashing at its back relentlessly. If she could focus her flames enough, she may be able to cut through its hull. Though she did manage to do some damage, Alpha turned around tried to smash her with its right arm, forcing Blaze to hop back. Seal fired Cricket at Alpha's side, drawing its attention to it, but it also left it open for Tails to fly in and slash at it with Hurricane Gamma, forcing its attention on him before Blaze unleashed a wave of flame to draw its attention back towards her. And the cycle repeated as Blaze, Seal, and Tails all attacked in that order, causing Alpha to constantly switch between targets without even getting a chance to focus. Between its constant focus and the relentless attacks from all three, its systems began to overload quickly enough as smoke shot out from its vents and the top of its head opened, revealing a glowing blue core with dust flowing inside it. "Core exposed," Tails announced. "I got it." Seal fired a shot from Cricket at the core, blasting it to pieces and caused the machine to short-circuit and combust before it fell apart in a heaping pile of smoke and flames. Though Blaze acted quickly as she used her pyrokinesis to draw the flames out before a serious fire could start, which she quickly extinguished. "It's done, Professor," Blaze informed him as Tails went over to help Pietro, taking him by his arms and hovering in the air to keep him from falling. "Thank you, but what about Penny?" he said with worry. "Yeah, that is a problem," Tails said before another worry came to mind. "Where is Cinder?" Blaze and Seal both went to the door on the other side of the lab, one that led to chamber Cinder was confided in. Seal used her handprint to open it, with both her and Blaze gasping at the sight of the disabled AK units, and Cinder, nowhere to be found. "This does not bode well," the Flame Princess commented seriously. Whitley stood outside Weiss' dressing room, nervously tapping his foot as he could hear his father going off on his sister over the recent performance. He honestly didn't understand why Jacques was so angry over it. The performance was a huge success in his opinion. Sure, it was flashier than expected, but everyone loved it. He even looked at the online reviews on his scroll and every single one of them was positive. So, why was his father so upset? He tried to listen in as closely as he could, sticking his ear to the door, allowing him to hear Jacques more clearly. Unbelievable. Jacques paced back and forth in the dressing room while Weiss, who was still in her blue and red rose outfit from the performance, sat casually in her chair, unsurprised by all this while looking at her scroll, as if she was ignoring his ramblings. Unacceptable. Inconceivable. Do you even know what that last one means? Weiss asked, causing her father to look even more irate than before. Because I don't think it means what you think it means. Do you have any idea what your little stunt cost us? Jacques pointed to her. And I'm not just talking about lean, here. Did it really cost you anything? Weiss questioned. The event was a success. Isn't that what you wanted? What I wanted was to show that our family is still strong. That we will protect and guide Remnant to a brighter future. Jacques exclaimed. But all you've done is illustrate a damn phantom. Our reputation is only sinking further because of this. Oh please. Weiss rolled her eyes. If anything, this shows the people of Remnant that the Schnee family are the biggest supporters of the Golden Hero. That alone brightens and improves our image more than it has been in the last decade. Why you? Jacques growled, but Weiss interrupted him as she stood up on her feet. You're only mad because the spotlight isn't focusing on you. I'm the one who brought our family to the very top of Atlas. To the top of this God's forsaken world. Jacques shouted. All you seem interested in is dragging our name through the mud. You did that, Weiss exclaimed. You were the one who put our family's name in the moral gray area, and that's putting it lightly. All I've ever done is try to redeem my family's name. A name you corrupted the second you married into it. Jacques immediately slapped Weiss across her face. The sound of the slap was loud enough that Whitley stepped into the room with a shocked expression on his face. Weiss. Stay out of this, Whitley. Jacques pointed to him. However, to their confusion, they both heard a slight chuckle coming from Weiss as she straightened herself up. Really? She looked at him questionably. That's the best you got? Jacques was completely stunned by this. A single slap had always been enough to silence her. Even Whitley was more than a little surprised. I've faced creatures of grim, armed terrorists, delusional psychopath, and murderous robots. Weiss listed off. I've been shot at, chased down, blown up. You think I can't take a little slap? Jacques then slapped her again, this time using the back of his hand with much more force than before. But, to Whitley's astonishment, and Jacques' growing anger, Weiss laughed harder. Oh brothers, you are weak, she said with a laugh. Weak, Jacques growled. But then again, it's always easy to look strong with 3 little kids in your house, right? Weiss said mockingly, which prompted Jacques to try and punch her in the face, with Whitley looking ready to step in, only for Weiss to catch Jacques by his wrist. But maybe you haven't noticed. Weiss' smile faded as she glared at him. I'm not a child anymore. Weiss, what are you? Jacques stuttered in disbelief. You can call him a phantom all you want, but that person is far greater a hero than you could ever pretend to be. Weiss laid on. And I'm not talking about his power. I've honestly never met someone as kind or free-spirited or inspirational as him. I thought for a long while that I was trapped in your shadow, but he showed me the truth. I am and always have been free. Free to do what I want with my life, and nobody, not even you, can take that freedom away. Weiss, Whitley muttered as he never seen Weiss stand up to their father like this. It was no secret that she often disagreed with him. But to see her speak up and stand her ground like this, and to speak with such fire and passion in her voice, he honestly felt moved by it. She truly was strong. She had finally let go of her father, who backed away as he too saw the fire in Weiss' eyes. This is not the same little girl he tried to groom and frighten. The look in her eyes was near identical to the late Nicholas Schnee in his prime, strong and unwavering. As much as he wanted to deny it, Jacques was smart enough to see that Weiss wasn't going to back down from him anymore. Well, if she won't be his favorite doll, then she can just rot away in the trash. This behavior of yours is completely unacceptable, he said in seemingly calm manner. And it's unbecoming of the heiress to the Schnee name. You're disowning me, then. Weiss had a feeling this was coming. She was about to lose her inheritance. Prepared, I see, Jacques noted. Well, that makes things easier. Whitley. He called for his son and turned to him. Congratulations. You are now the heir to the Schnee family and Schnee Dust Company. Effectively immediately. Whitley's eyes went circular. The heir to the Schnee name. Him. He had to double-take to make sure he heard that right. This had been something he wanted for a long time. To be his father's successor and eventually inherit the family's name and company. But, why did it feel so hollow? So bittersweet? Was it because Weiss was just disowned in front of him? Disowned? Was that even necessary though? The event was a huge success, and she was being kicked out of the family for it. That's when he remembered the meeting between him and his father earlier today, when he proposed using the AK units as mining drones and relocating the Faunus workers into less dangerous positions in the company. Jacques shut down the idea. No, he laughed about it to his face. And it wasn't even about money. It was about his own position at the top. His position. Even more than the Golden Hero, despite saving an entire kingdom. People were suffering, and he didn't even seem to care. So much so that he would disown his own daughter just for defying him and speaking out. He clenched his fists as he felt something in him bespark. "No, I beg your pardon," Jacques questioned. "I said, no," Whitley repeated. "I won't be your successor. Not if this is what it means to be your successor." "Oh, now look what you've done, Weiss." Jacques turned back to her. "You've gotten inside his head too. Are you trying to ruin my son?" "Look at me," Whitley exclaimed, causing the abusive father to turn around in surprise, with even Weiss being surprised by his outburst. She had never seen or heard him shout like that, much less to Jacques. "Weiss didn't try to get in my head. She wanted me to see what our company is doing, and what we can do with it, all the people we can help with what we have." He looked towards her as a small smile appeared on her face. "But you really don't want to help anyone, do you? You just want to help yourself. That's your former sister, talking, Whitley," Jacques said coldly. "Former? She's part of this family. Are you kicking her out just because? I can do what I want with this family. It's mine. You are mine," Jacques exclaimed as he began to advance on him. "Everything you are, everything you have, is because of me. I'm the reason you are fed, clothed, and have a roof over your head. You exist because of me. I own you." Suddenly, a glyph appeared in between them as a large white sword emerged up from it, separating Jacques from Whitley. "Stay away from my brother," Weiss said warningly as she stepped by the surprised Whitley's side. "Weiss, are you threatening me?" Jacques exclaimed. "You disowned me, remember? Therefore, I have no obligation to you whatsoever," Weiss reminded. "And if you ever think of laying a hand on Whitley, you will answer to me." Once again, Whitley looked towards his sister in awe and admiration. He honestly was getting scared with the way Jacques was advancing on him. And yet, she stood up to their father and protected him. He didn't quite explain it, but he suddenly got the sense that his sister really would protect him. She would have his back no matter what. And that made him feel happier than he ever been before. Weiss, flash, asterisk. Suddenly, to everyone's astonishment, an orange portal opened directly under Weiss and Whitley, leading them both to fall directly into it before it closed. Jacques blinked in genuine surprise as he saw both his children disappear in the blink of an eye. But before he could contemplate it, his personal scroll began to vibrate. He wordlessly pulled it out and saw the contact read, "Unknown." His instincts told them who it was though. "Arthur." He answered the call as he walked back into the dressing room, closing the door behind him. "I hope I'm not interrupting any family drama, Jacques," Watts inquired knowingly. That was you?" Jacques questioned. "It was," Watts confirmed. "Now pay close attention." Spiral Hill. Hazel weakly picked himself up as he felt his aura beginning to slowly recover, but had to lean his hand against the side of a building for support as he took a moment to catch his breath. But as he did, the sounds of roaring, explosions, and battle rang around him, leading him to turn and see a horde of Grimm attacking Spiral Hill, with Sonic and his companions apparently leading the charge of defense. Sonic leapt from rooftop to rooftop, getting as high as he could to reach the airborne Nevermores. One flew down straight towards him, and Sonic used that to deliver a homing attack to the Nevermore's face and reach the sky. He then proceeded to deliver another homing attack to a second Nevermore that came towards him, smashing through its wing to send it falling to the ground before kicking off the flying Grimm as it fell to spindish his way into a third. But as he clung to the third Nevermore, he saw several more incoming from all around him, prompting Sonic to let loose a blue tornado in the air to pull in all the surrounding Nevermore and rip them to pieces. On the ground, Knuckles went for a charge and a spinning spiral attack with his dual Galatine blades pointed outward, which he used to literally drill through a line of Grimm. But as he stopped, he was greeted by a Barangel that raised its enormous fists up to smash him, only for Knuckles to slice his blades upward and completely sever the Barangel's arms before slicing to cut it in half entirely. Two Ursai attempted to pounce on him from both sides, but Knuckles thrusted his axe blades into each of their heads before hauling them up to smash the two Grimm into each other and crush them. Amy brought her Pico Pico down onto the head of one Saber, crushing it entirely. But she quickly brought up the pole of her hammer to block the lunge of another Saber, which she countered by pulling her feet back and kicked it off and then swung her hammer again to smash its head apart. When the pink hedgehog became surrounded by 3 more Sabers and 4 Beowulfs, she unleashed her tornado hammer attack to pull the 7 Grimm in and smash them. Tangle used her tail like a springboard and launched herself over a Beowulf that tried to pounce at her before wrapping her tail around it, and as she came down, hauled it over to smash the Beowulf onto two more to smash all three. And Ursa tried to swipe its claws at her, but Tangle jumped back to avoid it before using her tail to bind its hind legs and trip it over, and then flipped in the air before landing with both her feet onto its skull. Taking a second to look around, Hazel also saw the same students whom Tyrion and Vermilion poisoned and Aura drained somehow miraculously recover and help support the villagers who were fighting back as well. Neptune swung try-hard to bisect a Beowulf while three villagers helped provide cover as they piled onto a saber and pounded them with their makeshift weapons. Four villagers and Nolan were cornered by a Barangel and two sabers, only for Scarlet to fly in and shoot one saber multiple times and slice off the head of the second, leaving the Barangel alone for Nolan to thrust his cattle prod into its stomach and electrocute it, giving the villagers a chance to beat it to death with pipes, bats, and wrenches. Sage and five villagers stood together as two Ursa went for them, but Sage brought his sword down onto one while the others piled onto the second and gave Sage a chance to cut it down and kill it. All in all, this seemed like a decent fight force that honestly impressed Hazel. But he saw more and more Grim incoming by the second. That included an Ursa that charged directly for him. However, Hazel reached for its head before it could get his claws at him and used his strength to pry its head off entirely. Three Beowulfs tried to charge at him, only for a third eye beam to cut them down, courtesy of Earl Shen as he used his pole to support himself, while carrying the unconscious and tailless Tyrion behind him with his free arm. "We should leave," Earl Shen said in exhaustion. "I doubt we have an opening," Hazel replied, as with the current wave of Grim, there seemed to be no end in sight. "And where's Vermilion?" Sonic saw this as well while airborne and noticed more and more Grim being drawn closer to Spiral Hill. It wasn't nearly as big as the attack was on Beacon, but it was still concerning. "I don't know if we can hold out like this much longer," Sonic said as he brandished the Chaos Emerald. But while he was in the air, and descending to the ground, he noticed something. A lack of a certain murderous robot with a built-in grudge towards him. "Where's Metal?" Meanwhile, back at the community center, all the kids of Spiral Hill sat huddled together in the main room as a few adults watched over them, which included Jewel and Emilia. It's okay, everyone." Jewel tried to calm the children as best as she could. "Sonic is here, remember? He'll make all the scary monsters go away. I promise, we won't let anything happen to any of you." Emilia assured as well, even as she looked to the nearest window, where Oscar was as he kept an eye out for any Grim that could pass through. But as he looked through the window, he also saw Ozpin's reflection in the glass. "Can't you do something about this?" "No," Ozpin responded. "It's too soon for me to use my power through your body. The most I can do at this point now is talk through you." "Well, can't you wake up my own aura? Give me a semblance, maybe?" Oscar asked. "What about the semblance you had before?" "It doesn't work that way," Ozpin replied. "I may be able to force your own aura to awaken, but that's the extent of it. A semblance has to develop on its own and can't be forced. And any semblance I had in any of my past lives does not transfer over to you. I am sorry, Oscar, but there is nothing else I can do, and believe me, in a crisis like this, I do wish I could do something. More than anything, I hate being helpless and unable to lend my aid." Oscar looked away in frustration as he honestly felt the same way. Though he never imagined himself becoming a huntsman, he hated being on the sidelines and unable to help anyone when they needed it. And now, here he was, with an ancient warrior inside him, and he couldn't use any of his powers. His thoughts were interrupted by the sounds of gunfire and yells coming from just outside. Looking through the window, Oscar gasped as he saw in a short distance, RWBY jumping backwards to avoid a fierce punch from Vermilion as he advanced towards her, striking the ground with enough force to break it up. Yang came at him from behind with a punch, which he blocked and parried before striking her in the face, and when RWBY tried to swing Caliburn at him, he caught the blade and slammed her into her sister. Is that? Oscar blinked in surprise. RWBY rose, and her sister. Ozpin seemed just as surprised to see them as Oscar himself. But that surprise turned into dread as he recognized the man they were fighting. "Oh dear, Vermilion Radok. That's the same guy who attacked us," Oscar muttered. "One of Salem's older subordinates and among her most dangerous," Ozpin replied. "RWBY and Yang cannot handle him alone. The second he heard that, Oscar bolted out the door, much to Ozpin and Amelia's surprise. "Wait, Oscar," she called to him. "Oscar, no." Ozpin tried to stop him too. RWBY and Yang were both held up by their throats by Vermilion, and despite their struggles, he stood firm. "Your fighting style is a poor imitation of Kiro Bronwyn," he said to RWBY first before looking to Yang. "And you're the spitting image of Raven, and yet you fight like that of Xiaolong." "I'll take that as a compliment," Yang spat defiantly at his mask. "But you do have your mother's defiance," Vermilion observed. "But while I can't afford to kill your sister, you're expendable." "No, don't, please." RWBY tried to escape their opponent's grasp. Oscar then appeared to charge in at full speed and ram into Vermilion's back, only to bounce off it like a rubber ball and land on the ground, while Vermilion wasn't the least bit affected. If anything, he only glanced in the boy's direction in minor annoyance. "And who might you be? Kid, run, get out of here," Yang cried out, but Vermilion still held her and RWBY tightly. Oscar found himself panicking at the sight of this towering monster. The black boar mask and the red eyes underneath almost had him think that this was a grim inhuman form. He was too scared to even move or speak. "I asked you a question. Who are you?" Bang! Asterisk. A shotgun was fired off into Vermilion's back, which was enough for him to let go of RWBY and Yang as he turned to the woman who held the smoking weapon. "Get the hell away from my nephew!" Amelia yelled as she fired again, but Vermilion rushed her before she could react and smacked the shotgun away before grabbing her by the throat. "I like your spirit. So, I'll snap your neck and make it quick." He tightened his grip around her neck to break it like a toothpick. "No!" Oscar screamed at the top of his lungs as he charged again. But with some help from within, his whole body began suddenly encased in a flash of green light, which caught Vermilion, RWBY, and Yang by surprise as Oscar pulled back his fist and punched Vermilion in the face to knock him off his feet and send him rolling across the ground. Oscar blinked as he looked at his own glowing green aura that manifested around his body, with Amelia looking more shocked than before. RWBY and Yang both blinked as well, just wondering who that boy was. RWBY, Yang. Looking up, the pair spotted their pink wisp friend flying to join them. "Rosa," RWBY looked with relief as she saw her. "I know that aura." All eyes turned to Vermilion as he got back up. "That color, that strength." He narrowed his eyes with as much hate as he could and all of it directed to Oscar. "Ozpin." "What?" Yang gasped with RWBY's own eyes widening. "Ozpin." Both of them recalled being told that Ozpin was the reincarnation of an ancient warrior that had been battling Salem for many lifetimes. And that every time his current incarnation died, his soul would appear in a new host, but who and when that host would appear was anyone's guess. But it would seem that this boy was now the current host of the soul of their late headmaster. RWBY pushed her surprise away. If Vermilion worked for Salem, then there was little doubt that he would try to kill this boy. She had to help, and there was only one way to do it if Sonic was unavailable. "Rosa, I need you to supercharge me. Just like back at Argus." "But RWBY, I did that with 5 people already. If I charge you, it won't last long before I'm drained," she informed. "We don't have a choice. Do it," RWBY screamed, which was then followed by a scream from Oscar as Vermilion grabbed him by his neck, much to Amelia's horror. Oscar. Seeing no other option, Rosa flew into RWBY and supercharged with as much hyper-go-on energy as she could muster. Just like at Argus, RWBY's aura glowed brightly as it mixed pink and red energy that radiated over her body, with even her eyes shining a mix of silver and pink. With a mighty yell, RWBY dashed at Vermilion as fast as she could, striking him in the blink of an eye with enough force that it sent him crashing into a building, but RWBY wasn't about to let it end there. Wanting to make sure her opponent was down for the count, RWBY channeled as much of hers and Rosa's strength combined as her whole body surged with bright pink energy while also taking the stance of a professional sprinter. "Gotta go fast." She shot herself like a laser beam with the force of a missile and acted as such. In a beam of red and pink light, she struck the recovering Vermilion with so much energy and force that the building they were in exploded completely and the villain himself was sent flying over the line of buildings and outside the town perimeter, leaving him to fall off the hill the village was settled on, and into a nearby river that flowed away. RWBY stumbled out of the remains of the building as she fell on her hands and knees, Rosa emerging from her body as the pink wisp dropped to the ground next to her. "Thanks," RWBY smiled weakly. You're welcome, Rosa said as her color faded slightly. She would need plenty of rest to recover her energy. RWBY. Yang was the first to rush to her sister, with Oscar and Emilia right beside her. Even Jewel looked out the door of the community center to see the commotion. Are you alright? Yang asked as she kneeled to RWBY's level. I'm fine, Yang, RWBY muttered as she seemed out of breath and gave a weak smile. Yang wasted no time in hugging her sister with comfort and joy, much to RWBY's own mutual relief. Even Oscar and Emilia looked happy and relieved as well, and while he couldn't see it, Oscar could feel Ozpin's own relief within as well. Ozpin. RWBY looked to Oscar. Is that really you? Well, not exactly, Oscar said with an awkward smile. My name is Oscar, and this is my Aunt Emilia. He gestured to the woman next to him. Ozpin is inside me. Suddenly, RWBY's scroll began to ring, much to hers and everyone's surprise and confusion. RWBY took out her scroll but saw no recognizable contact on the screen. Her curiosity getting the better of her, RWBY answered it and put it on speaker. Hello. Look up. The voice that came from the scroll was completely monotone, like a machine with absolutely no emotion whatsoever. But regardless, RWBY and the others looked up towards the gray sky, where they saw Metal Sonic hovering in the air. RWBY's eyes widened the second she saw the robot, the one that ripped Penny to pieces. She hadn't seen him since Beacon, and seeing him again, caused her blood to run cold. Metal Sonic landed on the ground in front of the group, prompting Yang to stand and glare, standing protectively in front of everyone while Emilia stood in front of her nephew. Hello there. It's been a while. Everyone, especially RWBY, felt disturbed when they heard the monotone voice through RWBY's scroll before they found themselves looking at Metal Sonic himself as it began to sink in for them. As much as they wanted to deny this haunting realization, they couldn't. Some way, somehow, Metal Sonic was speaking. The silent robot who had not said a single word since RWBY, Yang, or even Ozpin, had faced him was now talking. And through RWBY's scroll no less. For some reason, that actually felt far more terrifying than Metal speaking himself. How are you? RWBY stuttered. Before she could speak, Metal Sonic unveiled his dual-side-like blades on his hands, which only caused RWBY's heart to stop and her face to turn pale. No matter how altered it was, her heart couldn't deny what she was seeing. The weapon that she made herself, the weapon that her beloved uncle helped to train her with, the weapon that she modeled after both her uncles and late mothers, the weapon that she grew to love as she put her heart and soul into its construction, the weapon that she considered an extension of herself. Crescent Rose. Yang's eyes widened as she glanced at her sister in surprise. That was Crescent Rose. Crescent Edge. Eyes shifted between RWBY's scroll and Metal himself, with the voice coming from one and the real source of it being from the other. But no matter which focus it was, they were forced to listen as the literal killing machine spoke. I renamed it. Rose was an unbefitting name for such a deadly tool. Crescent Edge, on the other hand, sounds far more dangerous. I think it suits it more. Crescent Edge. Metal Sonic not only stole RWBY's beloved weapon, but even butchered it and remade it into something that it wasn't meant to be. And he even renamed it, like it was his own weapon instead. Yang's blood boiled more than it ever had before as she felt this was the ultimate personal attack against her younger sister. You tin-faced son of a. She was interrupted as Metal zoomed at her, grabbed her by her hair and slammed her onto the ground face first. Before Oscar or Emilia could blink, Metal slapped them both away with his hands as he appeared in front of the frightened RWBY and Rosa, the girl's silver eyes shaking as she locked them with Metal's red optics. RWBY, run. You need to run. Rosa tried to pull her away with what little strength she had, but she found herself paralyzed by pure fear, her heart racing and her vision fading as Metal Sonic stood over her. Metal's gaze however shifted to the side as a blue blur appeared on the scene. It was Sonic, and the second he saw Metal, he dashed straight for him, ready for a fight. Only for Metal to swiftly grab RWBY by her neck and hold her out in front of him like a meat shield, forcing Sonic to skid to a halt as he looked in shock at this. My double, Metal Sonic spoke through RWBY's scroll, which he now held in his free hand, with Sonic's own pupils shrinking as he heard that. You were always so weak. Did you just? Sonic muttered. Metal was talking. There was only one time where he spoke before. All living things kneel before your master. Those words echoed through Sonic's head as it brought back a certain memory that he wasn't keen on reliving. With Sonic distracted, Metal Sonic flew straight upwards, well above the line of rooftops of Spiral Hill. "RWBY!" Yang shouted as she picked herself up. "Where's he taking her?" Oscar exclaimed. "I'll get her," Sonic stated as he got serious and took out the blue Chaos Emerald once again. RWBY looked around with multiple short breaths as she found herself hovering at least 200 feet over Spiral Hill. But it was from this height that gave her a full view of the village that was currently being besieged by Grimm. She saw a majority of them being drawn towards the front as Knuckles, Amy, Tangle, and Team SSNN tried to hold them back. "Looks familiar, doesn't it?" Metal Sonic taunted, and as he did, RWBY had flashbacks to the battle at Beacon, where her school came under the attack by countless Grimm. "Do you know why this is happening? It's because of you." RWBY gasped at that, even more so as Sonic appeared in a flash of light above them via Chaos Control. "Let her go." He zoomed at them with a spin dash, only for Metal to produce his black shield around himself and RWBY, causing Sonic's spin dash to bounce off. He unfurled and attempted to spin dash again. He was caught by a Nevermore as several flew in the air around them. A majority of them went to Sonic, while a few tried to peck at Metal and RWBY within the black shield. Sonic struggled in the maw of the Nevermore that attacked him. "Get out of my way." He held the blue Chaos Emerald tightly and channeled its own power through him. Blue energy surged through his body as his own eyes glowed blue as well. He blasted himself through that one Nevermore and found himself engaging in rapid battles against the others that littered the sky. "Salem's agents came to this village to draw you out," Metal Sonic continued, speaking more to the terrified RWBY. "And that battle drew in all the Grimm, and there are more on the way." RWBY's hyperventilation accelerated as her thoughts were drowned out by a ringing through her ears, and the only sounds she could hear was the monotone voice from her scroll. The words of Metal Sonic. "But unlike Beacon, Sonic can't transform and make your problems go away." She tried to close her eyes, but he forced them open with his metallic fingers. "You will watch this. Watch your friends struggle fruitlessly. Perhaps Sonic might survive this, but what of the others? What of your sister?" Stop it, RWBY muttered as tears flowed down her eyes. "But just know, if your sister does manage to escape from this, I will track her down. And I will tear her apart limb from limb." He brandished one of his scythe blades in front of her face, allowing her to see a reflection of her own terrified eyes. Just as I've done with not only that android, but so many others with these blades. "Stop it," RWBY began to shout. "And once I'm done with her, I'll find your other friends." Metal continued. "Weiss Schnee, Blake Belladonna, even Kiro Bronwyn and your father. I'll kill every last one of them with Crescent Edge. Let her go." Sonic exploded in a flurry of blue chaos energy that destroyed most of the Nevermores in the area and zoomed for Metal, striking the black shield again, but not even cracking it. "I can't use Chaos Control to get in. I'm not precise with it like Shadow. But I will break through." He used the Chaos Emerald to enhance his own speed as he performed countless spin dashes and homing attacks over the barrier, but Metal still held RWBY close and made sure she saw only her own reflection, his scythe blade. "Everyone you know and love will die by these blades," Metal went on. "Stop it." RWBY's mind was filled with flashbacks of the attack on Beacon, specifically the moment where her friends were being overwhelmed, including Penny, whom Metal cut to pieces with Crescent Rose. "And it will all be." Metal kept going. "Stop it." RWBY's eyes flickered with silver energy, with even the blue Chaos Emerald in Sonic's possession flickering with the same silver light. "Your fault." Metal finished. "Stop it." Flash. Asterisk. RWBY's eyes shined a bright white light, with Metal deactivating his black shield in that very instant, with the blue Chaos Emerald in Sonic's hand also shining silver. The light from RWBY's eyes took the form of massive wings of white light energy that shinned and spread over the entirety of Spiral Hill. Everyone throughout the village, Knuckles, Amy, Tangle, Hazel, Earl Shen, Neptune, Sage, Scarlet, Nolan, Young, Rosa, Oscar, Emilia, Jewel, and all the villagers, all of them looked up in surprise and were forced to cover their eyes from the bright light that engulfed the area, which was followed by the dying roars of all the Grimm that saw the light as well. When the light finally faded, everyone on the battlefield opened their eyes to something that made them look in clear shock. All of the Grimm in the area, both in and around the perimeter of the village, every single one of them, be they Beowulfs, or Sai, Sabers, and Barangel, they were all turned to stone. "Wah, what the heck? Tangle tapped a stone Beowulf, only for it to tip over and break apart on the ground once she touched it. A loud crash nearby caused her to give a startled yelp as she saw a stone Nevermore fall to the ground, hitting the roofs of some of the buildings and breaking apart on impact. Several other Nevermores fell as well, breaking apart as they hit the ground. Some even landed on other stone grim to break apart as well, with everyone finding what cover they could. What just happened? Neptune looked to his teammates, who seemed as lost and confused as he was. Knuckles and Amy both looked up to the source of the light. Even if this was their first time seeing it, they both had a good idea what it was. As did Hazel as he and Earl Shen, who still carried the unconscious Tyrion, gazed up in the same direction. Silver eyes. Ruby, Young muttered in surprise as this was her first time seeing the power her father and uncle spoke of. This was the power of those with silver eyes. Amelia and Oscar similarly looked in surprise and awe, with even Ozpin within Oscar having his own expression that mixed relief and concern. Ruby fell unconscious in Metal's arms, any strength she had gone completely. But the second she did, Metal was struck by a homing attack from Sonic, forcing him to let go of Ruby before Sonic caught her and the two fell back to the ground. But as they did, Sonic used the blue Chaos Emerald again to perform a chaos control and teleported him and Ruby from the air, back to the spot close to Yang and the others. Ruby. Once again, Yang stumbled to her sister as Sonic held her closely. She's okay, just out of it, he assured her, to Yang's relief. But they both looked up with glares at Metal Sonic, who just hovered high in the air, staring down at both of them. Right before he flew away from the village. This was a grave concern to both of them, but they would deal with Metal Sonic later. Right now, their first priority was taking care of Ruby. Is the robot abandoning us? Earl Shen questioned as he and Hazel saw Metal fly away. And what of Vermilion or the others? Let's focus on getting out of here first. Hazel commented. Yeah, Amy appeared in front of them, her Pico at the ready. I don't think so. Did you think we forgot about you? Knuckles questioned as he appeared at their side with his arms crossed. No way you're attacking my home and just walking away. Tangle said with a confident smirk as she appeared behind them. And it wasn't just them. All the villagers in the area, as well as Team SSNN, had the three villains completely surrounded with no chance of escape. Surrender. Earl Shen said to Hazel in a whisper. Don't forget who our benefactors are. Hazel sighed with annoyance as he raised his hands up. We surrender. Ruby's unconscious form was laid out on a couch in the lobby of the community center as Young, Rosa, Amelia and Jewel looked after her. Give them some space, please. Jewel told the children, who did as the adults asked and allowed the group some space to look after her. Ruby, Young looked the most worried of them all. Will she be okay? Rosa asked with concern. Last time she did that thing with her eyes, she was out for 3 days. Young commented. I think she's fine. Amelia felt her pulse on her wrist. Her heart rate is steady, I think she's just exhausted. We can give her what rest she needs. Jewel said to Young. We even have a medical center if need be. Thank you, Young breathed with relief along with Rosa. The wisp turned to Sonic, who was now facing Oscar, who sat on a chair himself and looked more than a little nervous. So, Oscar, was it? Sonic asked. Yes, Mr. Golden Hero, Oscar replied timidly. Sonic chuckled as he gave a casual smile. Please, just Sonic is fine. You don't have to kiss up to me or anything. Sorry, it's just, Oscar was sorting through all sorts of emotions right now, but excitement was among them. We thought you were some sort of myth or something, but, here you are, in the flesh. The hero, who wiped out an entire continent's worth of Grim. Saved a whole kingdom. I don't even have the words. Okay, yeah, I did do all that stuff. Sonic said before smiling. But you said you wanted to talk to me about something. Oh, yeah. Oscar rubbed the back of his head. So, you've met Professor Ozpin, right? That caused Sonic to look serious. Yeah. Do you know that he can reincarnate himself into a new soul whenever his old body dies? Oscar asked nervously. Sonic's eyes widened. Wait, how do you know about? That's when it dawned on him. Hold on, are you? With a sigh, Oscar's form relaxed before a slight glow reflected in his own eyes. His stature then changed as he sat up straight and put his hands on his lap. Hello, Sonic. Despite his voice still being that of Oscar, Sonic knew immediately who this was from the tone of his voice and the way he carried himself. Ozpin. Meanwhile, as Emilia looked after Ruby, she felt her forehead to see if the girl had a fever, and that's when she noticed something odd. What's wrong? Yang questioned. Is she hot? No, she's cold, Emilia replied. What? Yang blinked in confusion. Jewel curiously put her hand on Ruby's cheek, craning her head slightly in the process. Her skin, it does feel cold. Like how one feels after coming inside on a cold winter day. That doesn't make sense, Yang said, already looking concerned. You said she was fine. She is, but, before Jewel could continue however, she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. With Ruby's head tilted in that direction, her hair was brushed aside slightly in the process, revealing what looked like a black crack-like mark on the side of her neck. What is? Flash. Asterisk. Suddenly, an orange portal appeared on the floor underneath Ruby, leading her and the couch she was on to fall inside, much to the shock of everyone else as they instinctively stood back. The flash of orange light also drew Sonic and Ozpin's attention, only for all of them to watch it close. What the heck was that? Sonic sped over to them in less than a second and saw what everyone else was seeing. There was just an empty spot on the floor. And nothing else. Ruby Rose was gone. Disappeared in the blink of an eye. What in the? Emilia stuttered. What was that? I don't know, Jewel had no idea either. Rosa. Sonic looked to the wisp. It looked like a portal I think, but I don't. Rosa was beyond confused. Ruby. All eyes ended up turning to Yang, who just stood there with a blank expression on her face. Her eyes were circular as her face became sheet white pale. She could have sworn her heart had stopped for a minute. RWBY, Yang muttered as she fell to her knees. Where did she? Yang, Sonic tried to reach for her. Where did my sister go? Yang slowly turned her head towards Sonic, where he could see tears already streaming down her eyes, despite the blank expression she had on her face. Where did my sister go? She repeated almost like a robot. I don't know. She can't be gone. Yang's body began to shake. This can't be real, can it? Her sister can't be gone. She's not gone, she's not gone. She's not gone. Yang's voice began to rise as her emotions all came up to the surface. Sonic wordlessly waved for everyone nearby to step back, which they all did. Yang. She's not gone. Yang screamed in anguish as she slammed her fist into the ground, her eyes burning bright red as her hair was set ablaze. The force of her punch shook up the whole floor, frightening everyone, save Ozpin still in control of Oscar's body, and Sonic who was still next to her. She's not gone. Bring her back. Yang cried as she continued to pound the floor, so much so that it was already breaking apart and forming a deep hole with each punch. Bring Ruby back. Bring my sister back. Bring her back. Bring her back. Yang cried as she raised her fists up high to try and smash the ground in one strike. Only for Sonic to quickly catch them by the wrists with his hands as he was now directly in front of her. Her red-eyed look of anger, grief, and despair matched with his green-eyed expression of concern, worry, and solace, showing he was just as worried and scared as she was. The second she saw those eyes, Yang latched onto him and let herself fall apart as she sobbed loudly. Her sister was right in front of her and she just vanished. She did nothing but watched as her precious sister, the only member of her family she felt she could trust, the only family she knew wouldn't leave or abandon her, was taken away. I'm sorry, Sonic muttered as he let the blonde sob and hold him tightly. And as she did, a strong feeling of anger filled his being as he clenched his gloved fists. Fastest thing alive, not even close. I couldn't save my own friend who was 10 feet away from me. But I'm not gonna beat myself up about this, and I won't let Yang do that either. This is someone else's fault. I don't know if it was Eggman, or Salem, or somebody new, but whoever took Ruby, we're gonna find them. And when we do, his eyes were lit with fires of determination and righteous anger. They're in for a world of pain. Metal Sonic had flown in the direction he saw Vermilion got blown away in, following the trail of the river. His optics scanned both the river itself, as well as the surrounding area, looking for any sign of the individual. That's when the robot's scanners picked up something along the bank of the river 50 meters ahead. Metal flew to that one spot and landed on the ground, his optics locating a boar mask, Vermilion's mask, lying on the ground. Metal picked it up to inspect it. I suggest you give that back, before I rip you to pieces. Metal looked in the shadows of the woods and saw the tall imposing figure of Vermilion make his way closer, the shadows of the trees obscuring most of his face save for his red eyes. Metal wordlessly tossed the mask Vermilion's way, which he put back on before noticing something behind him. Metal's optics zoomed in to see what appeared to be a wagon, with a dead man lying beside it. One quick scan and Metal could see that despite the man's vitals being flatlined, there were no signs of physical assault such as broken bones or anything to suggest he was beaten to death or strangled even. And yet, he detected no aura from him. Metal then gazed to Vermilion as he stepped out with his mask back on his face. You saw that, huh? He gestured to the dead body. Probably some vagabond looking to get to a village for shelter from that grim swarm. You know what semblance is, right? How I can copy that from others. Turns out, that's just a side effect. My real semblance lets me siphon away a person's aura and assimilate into my own. Metal eyed him seriously. You want to know how I lived since the Great War? That's how. Vermilion revealed. I take a person's aura and use it to rejuvenate myself. It heals all my injuries quickly enough and even slows my aging quite a bit. You're wondering why I'm telling all this to a mindless robot. Like I'm just rambling or something. He looked at Metal Sonic. Because you're not a mindless robot. Metal's gaze narrowed. You're not like those tin cans that Atlas markets. Vermilion continued. Sure, one can make the excuse that Eggman guy is programming you or piloting you remotely or something. But there is one dead giveaway to suggest otherwise, that scythe. He pointed to the crescent edge that was put away and attached to Metal's back. That belonged to that RWBY girl, didn't it? You took it as a trophy and even modified it. But you didn't do that just to make you or it more efficient in killing, though that was part of it. You did it to spite that girl, and the blue hedgehog you're based off of. Vermilion kneeled to his level. I see it. I see the hate in your eyes, even if they are that of a machine. I know hatred when I see it, and I feel it just the same, especially for certain people who have caused me pain in the past. You wanted to hurt the blue rat, but you felt that girl was close enough to her that you intend to use her to hurt him. He chuckled underneath his mask. Robot, I like your style. He patted Metal's head. So, this Radok was smarter than expected. There were indeed many reasons he targeted Ruby Rose, but making her suffer as a way to hurt Sonic was definitely part of it. But the reveal of how his semblance works is quite interesting. He can steal somebody's aura, even drain them dry to the point where they can die without it, and use it to increase his own, almost like a vampire. That was certainly an interesting ability. To drain aura and copy their powers. Oh yes, he could make quite the use of that. So, I'm assuming the others were captured. Vermilion asked. Tyrion, Hazel, Shen. Metal nodded in confirmation. No matter. Lionheart and Malachite will get them out easy enough. Vermilion brushed off. But what about those two shapeshifters? Or those skunk idiots? Metal shrugged, indicating he wasn't sure. Oh, well. Our strongest assets are still accounted for. Let's regroup with Malachite for now. Vermilion said, prompting Metal to pick up Vermilion by his shoulders and fly away. But as they flew, Metal silently analyzed the data he obtained from that whole encounter, specifically, the moment Ruby's silver eyes activated. Metal also detected the use of chaos energy in that particular moment. Though it was from Sonic at first, some